Chapter 259. Everyone quickly became familiar with each other. The gentle and sincere Crane Master was obviously the best choice to infiltrate the enemy's inner circle. Tang Tian and Ling Su fully understood what was called a honey trap. Tang Tian opened his drowsy eyes. The sleep was extremely satisfying. He only felt his entire body was comfortable and his spirit was full. Crane calmly bowed, his expression sincere. My group wanted to go to Baya, but did not think that we would lose our way and unintentionally barged into your tribe's territory. I hope everyone can forgive us. Go. Yu Shun waved his hand and his subordinates immediately retreated. Maybe you were too tired then. Crane played it down. Heaven's Road grade martial artist. Tang Tian was stunned again. Although they could handle Heaven's Road grade martial artists, but it was not easy. The key was Heaven's Road grade martial artists were not considered weak. His expression congealed. How many? To be able to make them use the Earth Bear Wave as a reward, how could they be easy to deal with? Ling Su sat on Flamingo and mocked. You make all the pigs in the world feel ashamed. They definitely can't sleep as well as you. A full 3 days. You respect. The gentle and tranquil Crane always gave people a good impression. The other few ladies in the group had already started to look at him passionately. Tang Tian and Ling Su immediately waved their hands at Hua Air. No matter what, we have to delay them for 3 days. Yu Shun said indifferently. Master Shui Qing and Master Yong Qiu will lead 70 elites and will arrive in 3 days. How many elites do we have? Yu Shun asked. Ling Su, who was at the side, sneered, extremely unhappy. You sure slept well, a full 3 days. We are tired like dogs. Even Heaven's Road grade martial artists ran out like flies. So annoying. Wasting my training time. Tang Tian's face exposed a look of caution. The red-haired lady in front of him reminded him of Sai Lei in the past, that terrifying aura. He would rather face a star spirit beast than such a lady. He quietly took a step back. Yu Shun carefully looked at the order in his hand, his face like water. Thinking of this, Yu Shun couldn't help but be overwhelmed with emotions. His side had the absolute advantage in terms of strength. Crane's extremely courteous actions caused the red-haired lady to reveal a smile. We can't say that we can guide you, but we are coincidentally going back. Why don't you follow us? Once we reach our tribe, we will not be far from Bia. I bought some food from outside. Hua Air sighed. Winter is coming. We need to prepare food in advance. Otherwise, many people in the tribe will not be able to survive the winter. Swoosh! Tang Tian and Ling Su's gaze immediately landed on Crane. Did he bring them to the wrong place? We're being watched. Crane said calmly. Other than the wave that you dealt with, we met with 5 more waves of attacks. However, Yu Shun was a little worried. Suddenly, Tang Tian's expression changed. There are people approaching here and there are quite a number of them. As so fast. Crane directly ignored the 2 unscrupulous people. According to Bell's route, we chose to head east, taking a detour, bypassing the first city of our original plan, the Mohican, and directly reaching the second city, Bia. Furthermore, they had close to 100 Heaven's Road grade martial artists elites. Just these 100 elites were enough to pose a threat to the 3 of them. If the battle was successful, feudal martial would definitely become the strongest power in the entire Lupus constellation. The unkind gaze from behind immediately made Crane feel uneasy. Could it be that he had brought them to the wrong place? Master Yu Shun was the second in command of feudal martial, and had the qualifications to occupy such a fertile land. Ling Su also took a step back in tacit understanding. Women were terrifying beings and should be handled by Crane. Every Lupus person is born a warrior. Since we cannot dig out food from the ground, then we will use our own blades and swords to fight for a chance to survive. The lives here are worthless. Haven't you heard of the saying, Lupus person is the best cannon fodder? Why, it's cheap enough and there are enough. Hehe. His underling quivered and immediately replied, We have sent them according to Master's orders. Our people have been delaying them. But they are very troublesome. Our people are all. Send another 10 people. Yu Shun waved his hand and said without hesitation. This was a big operation. There are 5 Heaven's Road grade martial artists. Crane's tone was still as calm as water. I suspect that there will be an ambush ahead, 5 waves of attacks. It is obvious that they are organized. The opponent should be trying to delay our speed. If that is the case, the opponent is most likely fighting for time to gather people. Yes. His underling's heart was overwhelmed. In the carriage, who exactly were they? The carriage was classified as a star treasure, which was why it could be kept. And for the sake of convenience, Tang Tian did not leave his mark on the carriage. Tang Tian and the other two were silent. This matter was beyond their knowledge. The carriage that I ordered previously, have you sent people there? Tang Tian looked around in a daze. He was actually on Tang Yi's back. Tang Yi took big strides, the scenery quickly flashing past. The red-haired lady's gaze landed on flamingo that Ling Su was riding on. A strange look flashed past her eyes. She raised her hand, stopping her underling, and urged her horse forward and chuckled. Fellow heroes, why have you entered the territory of our fire wolf tribe? With the help of the earthen bear wave, Boss was like a tiger that had grown wings, and his strength could increase by at least 30%. Yu Shun understood Boss very well. Boss had been suppressed by Kongda for so many years, and had long suppressed his anger. Now that his strength had increased, he naturally could not wait to find Kongda. Her voice was soft, as though it could seep into people's bones. As Hua Air spoke, she brought along a sense of sorrow. Crane, who was in the midst of flying, stopped. Wait a minute. There is no problem. Hua Air, where did you guys come from? Crane asked curiously. Crane's guess was reasonable. Yu Shun put down the secret order in his hand and suddenly asked. I am Hua Air. The red-haired lady said generously. Handsome young man, what is your name? Tang Tian's face turned sluggish. Change of route? Don't tell me there is a problem with Belle's route? I am Crane. Crane smiled and replied, then pointed to Tang Tian and Ling Su. My comrades, this is Tang Tian and this is Ling Su. This group of people were all swift and fierce. Out of the 20 people, there were 7 Heaven Road grade martial artists. I'll leave it to you. Tang Tian waved his hand. He did not care for such matters. It was better to let the smarter people worry about it as long as they could reach the end. Ling Su, who was sitting on Flamingo, laughed out loud without caring about his image. Huh. Crane, so your intellect is on the same level as this fellow. Congratulations, congratulations. Bia? The red-haired lady chuckled. Everyone's direction is indeed very disorientated. If you continue walking in this direction, you will never reach Bia. Tang Tian immediately opened his eyes wide and said in surprise, we met with an ambush? And another wave was dealt with by me? Why don't I have any recollection of it? So weird. Hua Air's face changed. Her blue eyes suddenly lit up with a cold aura. Chong, she pulled out the curved horse from her waist and shouted, prepare to meet the enemy. Does Lupus Constellation not produce food? Ling Su could not help but ask. Crane immediately became perturbed and immediately bowed to the red-haired lady. I hope Miss can guide us. There are roughly 40 people. The subordinate calculated and said. We have changed our route. Crane flew and said calmly, the carriage is too eye-catching, we have already kept it. Crane heard and was extremely grateful. Thank you, miss. You're awake. Crane said indifferently. His posture was indescribably free and easy. Even when flying, he was free and easy like a big crane flying forward. Heaven Road grade martial artists were not Tang Tian and the other two's opponents, but when their numbers reached a certain level, they could still pose a threat to them. 6 consecutive waves of attacks, that was definitely not normal. The subordinate was completely scared silly. Shui Qing and Master Yongqiu were the number 3 and 4 people of feudal martial, and were Heaven Road list martial artists. And in feudal martial, those who could be called elites, were all Heaven Road grade martial artists. Yes. He resisted the raging waves in his heart and replied while trembling. The subordinate did not dare to make a sound. Master Yu Shun was the true authority figure of feudal martial, and was the leader of a region. Their territory in the entire Lupus constellation was extremely fertile, since it was near Corvus constellation. Corvus constellation was not flourishing, but the trade route was at least smooth and they were able to benefit a little and go to Corvus constellation to do some small business. Compared to the chaos in the interior of Lupus constellation, the days here could be said to be more comfortable. Yeah. I couldn't tell, little crane, your intelligence has almost caught up to mine. Tang Tian made a fuss over nothing. Lupus people are good at fighting but not good at farming. Hua Air sighed lightly. And the land here is too barren. Our tribe is in the desert, a small oasis the size of a palm. What kind of food can we produce? That. We are. Tang Tian was at a loss. Where's the carriage? 5 Heaven Road grade martial artists, that was definitely not a small power. Boss went to find Kongda. Roughly 20 people, clustered around a lady dressed in leather armor. This lady held a horsewhip. Her appearance was alluring with a pair of blue eyes, a high nose bridge, fiery red hair, warm and thick lips. She was extremely sexy. A group of people appeared in their vision. Suddenly, Tang Tian's expression changed. Someone is coming over here. Crane and Ling Su also exposed a look of caution. Could it be that the other party had chased over? Crane and Ling Su looked at each other. If the other party was able to find their tracks in such a short time, that would be too scary. Crane's words made Tang Tian even more confused. Then what do you guys do? Tang Tian did not understand and asked. Zhou Xian suddenly laughed at himself. Could it be that the peaceful days were too long, and he had lost his fighting spirit and had actually become so timid? It was true that the three of them were Heaven Road list martial artists, but the three of them were also Heaven Road list martial artists. He jumped down from Tang Yi's back. Swoosh, everyone's gaze immediately gathered on Crane. Tang Tian and the other two felt their blood run cold. Zhou Xian's gaze looked far away, his face suddenly revealing a look of worry. Boss was at ease to find trouble with Kongda. He must have thought of that too. Is food so scarce? Crane was surprised. One look and I can tell you guys are not from Lupus Constellation. Homa Air laughed. As long as you are from Lupus Constellation, you will know how scary the winter of Lupus Constellation is and how precious food is. For a bag of food, some people will even massacre an entire village. The other party did not think that there would be people here, and everyone's face changed. Chong, their swords were unsheathed as though they were facing a great enemy. Chapter 260. Tang Tian suddenly smiled at Yan Jiuji. Yan Jiuji's heart jumped. The thin sword's restriction suddenly disappeared. He had broken free. Yan Jiuji was happy and was about to retreat, when suddenly a sharp true power entered his meridians from the thin sword. Homa Air felt as though she had crashed into a wall, groaned and flew out. In the dead silence, Tang Tian suddenly laughed out loud towards the sky. It was so sudden, so ear-piercing, so shocking to everyone. A thin sword, without a sound, pierced into the horse's abdomen. The cold and sharp sword aura suddenly exploded from the sword tip, in a moment piercing through the horse's body. A short and blurry figure suddenly shot out from the big-sized man's horse, sticking to Homa Air's horse's abdomen. This fellow was actually able to block Yan Jiuji's sword. Crane's body trembled. He could not believe what he was seeing at Tang Tian. That was power of the crane. The mace did not show any signs of weakness as it welcomed the blade aura. The big-sized man's mouth suddenly exposed a strange smile. Everyone's gaze towards Tang Tian became extremely strange. Homa Air's face was burning hot. She felt extremely embarrassed. That proud look was just like a hooligan. Where was the demeanor of an expert? Both parties were extremely fast. Homa Air just waved her blade and rushed into the opponent's formation. The scimitar in her hand was strange and unpredictable. Her moves were extremely fast. The moon-shaped blade aura flashing in the air, followed by a person falling. Homa Air borrowed the momentum, waved the scimitar in her hand, and a blazing red blade aura whistled into the opponent's formation. Yan Jiuji, who was running for his life, heard the whistle. The true power in his body suddenly became chaotic, and he directly fell from the sky, his face filled with shock. He no longer had any intention to fight, and struggled to crawl up from the ground and ran for his life. Yan Jiuji only felt as though an awl had suddenly pierced into his meridians. His face changed, the true power in his body became chaotic, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He did not care about calming the blood in his chest and turned to run. At this moment Tang Tian moved. Homa Air noticed that there was a big man in the opposing team who was extremely skilled. He used an incomparably heavy mace, and 3 people on her side had already been injured by him. A killing intent flashed past Homa Air's eyes. She squeezed her horse's abdomen, bent her waist and rushed forward. The curved blade in her hand hung down naturally, like a willow leaf swaying in the wind, bringing with it an indescribable rhythm. Heaven list martial artist. Must be a liar. This person's skills were unfathomable. That stupid look was just to make him lower his guard. The orderly sound of swords being unsheathed sounded out. Homa Air's subordinates did not look like a proper army, but at that moment they displayed a well-trained side. They spurred the horses beneath them and spread out, their expressions stern and murderous. Homa Air was unable to block it. The thumb-thick blue sword aura pierced through her left shoulder, bringing forth a rain of blood. After piercing through, it disappeared in the air. Tang Tian's eyes lit up, his heart was filled with intense joy. Originally he thought that he had completely comprehended the martial technique, but now he seemed to see many changes. Yan Jiuji's pupils shrank. Who are you? Puff. Not good. Ling Su looked at Tang Tian in disbelief. This brat, could he even break through like that? What a fierce girl. Ling Su exclaimed, speechless. A person who had comprehended the true essence of the crane body energy would be able to cultivate the power of the crane. Tang Tian and Crane had the same feeling. The enemy's numbers were 5 times their own, but they did not even frown and directly rushed forward. That was too fierce. The 3 of them could not dodge in time. Blood splattered, they screamed and fell off their horses. Ling Su snorted, "She is not my opponent." His body suddenly disappeared and a blue light shot straight for Tang Tian's throat. Tang Tian could not hold it in any longer and suddenly roared towards the sky. The crane body in his body was no longer restricted to the previous crane form. Suddenly it extended its wings and neck, and suddenly it stood up straight. Thousands of changes. This crane that was formed from countless small true power suddenly became extremely lively, as though it was alive. Hua Air was invincible, raising the morale of her subordinates, making them even more fearless. Seeing that the enemy's formation was in chaos, Hua Air's heart calmed down. Just a little bit more and the enemy would be completely defeated. Change. Suddenly, a dazzling spark like a rocket suddenly rushed into her vision. This stream of sparks accurately hit the blue sword ray and exploded with a bang. Hua Air's expression froze. She suspected that Tang Tian's brain was stuck in the door. Why would he say such words that made people not know whether to laugh or cry? Hua Air's subordinates trusted her. Upon hearing the order, all of them shot out like arrows, rushing towards the top of the hill. Before she landed on the ground, a cold blue light appeared in front of her like maggots in the bones. The ghost-like figure closed in on him. Rushing to the top of the hill, the view in front of her suddenly became clear, only to see a group of about 100 people on horses rushing towards them. The distance between them was less than 200 steps. Waha! I am truly a godlike young lad. After retreating a few feet, she could clearly see that Tang Tian was standing in front of her. This change was too sudden. Yan Jiuji's pupils shrunk. An expert. The atmosphere was completely destroyed. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the person who was laughing maniacally with his hands on his waist. Their minds were blank. Hua Air's pupils shrunk. Not good. Strong and weak will always be relative and changing. Tang Tian said loudly, "Hey, you can't kill her and I don't want to kill you. You guys go, I won't make things difficult for you." The long whistle was clear like a crane's cry. It was not loud, but from 10 li away it could be heard clearly. That's right, it was change. So powerful. Tang Tian's face was full of shock. It was his first time seeing such a strong woman. Her blade technique is very strong and her moves are very fast. Ling Su, are you faster or is she faster? Kill. These words were filled with arrogance, but everyone was already familiar with Ling Su's style. Yan Jiuji's eyes flashed a look of ridicule. Heaven Road list martial artist? Heh. Hua Air took the lead and rushed forward. In front of her was a gentle slope. The slope was not big and was filled with grass. The enemy's movements came from the other side of the slope. If the enemy occupied the top of the slope, they would lose the advantage. The crane's body seemed to be responding to Tang Tian, craning its neck and crying out loud. Tang Tian's entire body had an indescribable imposing manner. Tang Tian and the other 2 immediately rushed to the top of the slope. Changing the situation. Tang Tian immediately felt as though he had opened a new window. It was truly a little bit like using a little bit of effort to change 1,000 caddies. So blindly increasing true power, the effect was far from being able to take advantage of the situation. If used ingeniously, a little bit of true power could possibly produce an astonishing result. She then clearly saw Yan Jiuji's appearance. Yan Jiuji's figure was small, only about 1.6 m. His gaze was cold like a snake and in his hand was a deep blue sword. The group was in a mess, with horses that had lost their owners everywhere. All these horses were precious resources and no one would easily kill them. Snatch the slope in front. She felt as though she had fallen into an ice cellar, her blood almost congealed. Tang Tian also forgot to chase. He stood there in a daze, still reminiscing about the attack. His strength was definitely stronger than Yan Juji, but if they were to fight head-on without 10 rounds, it would be difficult to win. Just now, his intuition had predicted the opponent's reaction, and borrowing the opponent's retreating momentum, he took the opportunity to send in a wave of true power, but he did not expect the result to be so good and surprising. But Tang Tian seemed to have already predicted it, and with a tilt of his head he easily dodged it. Tang Tian and the other two looked at each other. Could it be the people who were chasing after them? Very strong. Crane said softly. At least they have the strength of the Heaven Road list's substitute area. The true power in his body surged. The crane body energy suddenly loosened and tightened, the crane's form faintly discernible. Crane body energy. Its true essence was not the crane body shape that he had always thought, but the transformation of the crane body. With a surge of true power, the slender sword that was locked started to undulate like a wave, like a ferocious python struggling with all its might. Ding! For the past few days they had traveled day and night flying at full speed. As long as a martial artist was not afraid of exhausting their true power, flying at full speed would be faster than a carriage. The advantage of a carriage was its endurance and could fly continuously for a few months. Hua Er's shout sounded out. She took the lead like a raging flame, brazenly pouncing towards the opponent's carriage. Her subordinates by her side let out a weird cry. Without hesitation they also rushed down. We fell into a trap. With Yan Jiuji's strength, it was impossible for him to fail. Despair surfaced in her eyes. 3 cat blades with traces of blood, blocked in front of Tang Tian, intersecting with Yan Jiuji's slender sword. Tang Tian's body did not move an inch. Her speed was extremely fast, like a red lightning. In a moment she rushed in front of the big-sized man. The curved blade in her hand trembled, and the cold blade aura went straight for the big-sized man's face. The big-sized man with the mace took the opportunity to move, suddenly leaping up, passing over Tang Tian's head. The mace in his hand raised up high. With a roar he smashed towards Hua Er. A black figure appeared out of nowhere. A perfectly straight white mist sword aura struck the mace. Hua Er had escaped from death and was still in a state of shock. She subconsciously distanced herself. This long whistle completely destroyed the enemy's willpower. Hua Er looked at Tang Tian in shock. This long whistle was endless, completely ignoring her true power, directly entering her heart. She did not even have the slightest thought of resisting. Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes. The crane body in his body was constantly changing. His pupils were as clear as water without any impurities. Even the air around him became clear. A sense of being refined arose spontaneously. She recognized the identity of the sneak attacker Yan Jiuji. Hua Er suddenly lit up with a red light aura, enveloping her and the horse beneath her. The horse was obviously not an ordinary horse. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Even compared to Ling Su's flamingo, it was not one bit inferior. A cold aura flashed past Yan Jiuji's eyes. The sword that was locked suddenly shot out a blue sword aura, straight for Tang Tian's face. So true power could be used like this. Looking at it, it did not seem like the person chasing them. Tang Tian and the other two heaved a sigh of relief. The big-sized man with the mace only felt an extremely sharp sword aura, instantly breaking through his true power, drilling into his meridians, and could not help but be overwhelmed with shock. His body that was like an iron tower flew back. The big-sized man's mace in front of him suddenly swept over. "My name is Tang Tian." Tang Tian patted his chest, his face proud. "I am a Heaven Road list martial artist. I am very powerful." If the hidden enemy could be so fast, then the power would be great. To Tang Tian and the rest it was not good news. Chapter 261. Hua Er's entire body trembled. She looked at Tang Tian in disbelief. They were at least 10 li away from the hill, but Tang Tian was actually able to sense the enemy from so far away. Tang Tian stared at the old man fiercely. The old man's strength far surpassed Yan Jiuji's. From the clash just now he knew it would be a tough battle. His gaze landed on the old man's hands. His hands were actually like blue ice sculptures, sparkling and dazzling. It was as though they had some sort of magical power and could attract people's attention. The old man gently waved his hands, and the 2 sleeves flew out like butterflies, revealing a pair of blue ice sculpture palms. He could feel it more deeply and felt that the thin layer of true power had many mysteries inside. If he could have a deeper understanding of the power of the crane, the thin layer of the power of the crane would become invisible. Following the rise of his strength, the places where he could rely on Bing became less and less. He needed to take the initiative to comprehend, although he was slightly stupid and that would require more time. But Tang Tian immediately shook his head. Power of the crane and the spirit domain's might and changes were like heaven and earth. But there were some characteristics that matched, and with the control of the martial spirit, it could be the initial stage of the spirit domain. To the cultured and refined crane, such an expression was rarely seen. Even the simple-minded Ling Su tactfully kept his mouth shut. Hugging his silver spear, he sat on Flamingo with his eyes and nose down, as though he was looking at his heart. You will all be used as cannon fodder. Huma Air said coldly. Watch me step on the air. It would be a lie if Crane was not envious, but he was an extremely cultured young lad. Since young he had a calm temperament which made him envious and even more happy. If not for Tang Tian's series of actions. It was as though in the boundless ocean, a blue whale the size of a mountain emerged from the surface. Suddenly Tang Tian stopped. His gaze looked at the hill in the distance. Someone is coming. Tang Tian felt that it was extremely novel. The majestic group of horses was escorting a group of captives. The enemies just now, other than Yan Jiuji, none of them escaped and became captives. That's right. Hazar straightened his neck and widened his eyes, not showing any signs of weakness. Our sandwolves have not had a strong leader for so many years. That's why we have fallen to this state today. Huma Air, you originally had the qualifications, but it's a pity that you refused. Wow, look at my invincible dog paddle. Ooh hoo hoo ha hey. Reporting to young master, they are from the Wild Earth tribe. Huma Air respectfully said. The three people in front of her had unfathomable strength and were extremely strong. The strong were respected, that was the law of the world, and in the cruel Lupus constellation, this law was even more vivid. The old man squinted his eyes. I heard that someone just created a brand new unique martial technique, called Fire Scythe Ghost Claw. I never expected to see it here. No wonder Jiuji lost to you. You do have some skills. Tang Tian's head was facing downwards again. His hands were like springs. Puff 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 as he bounced forward. Tang Tian made a mental note of this bold conjecture and would slowly verify it in the future. Huma Air was startled. A wave of vast and dangerous qi suddenly burst out from the old man's body. Around his body it revolved and revolved. The mist was formed from true power that was as fine as a speck of dust, and attached to Tang Tian's body, forming a thin layer. Yan Jiuji was also found by Xen Li. Huma Air's face was gloomy. So strong. His blue hands were raised, one high and one low, placed in front of his chest. His 5 fingers were like hooks. You have some eyesight. The old man said coldly. At such a young age to be able to create the Fire Scythe Ghost Claw, you have a future. But since you met me, then today will be the day of your death. You believe Xen Li's words? Huma Air shook her head. Haja Air, have you ever seen someone more cunning and ruthless than him? Of the tribes that joined hands with him, which tribe is still alive? The qi exploded in all directions. The 2 figures clashed and separated, both retreating 10 m. Who injured Jiuji? The old man with the blood eye asked. Seeing Tang Tian in such a sorry state, Crane felt satisfied. His expression returned to normal and the suppressive qi disappeared. Crane turned and smiled as he asked Huma Air, Do you know these people, Miss Huma Air? Without thinking, Tang Tian waved the bleeding cat blade scythe in his hand, and a dazzling spark welcomed the blue claw. Huma Air's face became gloomy. Haja Air, you actually relied on Xen Li? Power of the crane was a legendary absolute technique, and in Crane's heart, it was extremely sacred. Tang Tian, you have gained enlightenment on the power of the crane. That is so rare, so lucky. Please cherish it and assimilate the power of the crane into your martial techniques. Crane's heart was like that. But personally witnessing Tang Tian not doing his job properly, using the absolute technique of the crane sect for fun, and wasting it, how could he have a good face? This asshole. Tang Tian laid on the horse like a pile of mud, his entire body unable to move. He had played too much just now and actually used up all of his true power. He did not even have the strength to walk and could only lie on the horse's back. The shock in Crane's heart could not be described with words. the power of the crane compared to the crane body energy was of a much higher level. In the history of the crane sect, only the early disciples of the crane sect were able to cultivate the power of the crane. If we were to say that the crane body energy was the starting point of the crane sect's martial techniques, without anyone gaining enlightenment on the crane body energy, the majority of the crane sect's martial techniques could not be trained. But the power of the crane was like the finishing touch. After gaining enlightenment on the power of the crane martial techniques, even the most ordinary crane sect martial techniques in his hands would have their might amplified. Ding. Seeking death. The old man with the blood eyes snorted, his figure suddenly disappeared. Sigh, a blue light flashed past Tang Tian's eyes, and a blurred image of an azure claw suddenly appeared in his vision. Especially when he realized that the power of the crane could help his body float, he quickly found a series of ways to play, swimming in the air, jumping upside down, etc., and immediately became extremely happy. Everyone in the team tactfully shut their mouths. Homa Air, you don't have a chance. Haja Air's emotions calmed down. So what if he is a Heaven Road list martial artist? The power behind Xin Li is much bigger than you can imagine. Humph, his ambition is not just this desert. You want him to fight with Silver Moon, Heaven Hook and Feudal Marshal. Haja Air's neck turned red, his eyes filled with flames. I don't care so much, of course you don't have to worry. But what about us? If this goes on, we won't even be able to survive this winter. Homa Air was speechless. Tang Tian faced the back as though he was stepping on water, both of his legs kicked the air, and his body was pushed forward. This brat who did not even look like he had grown hair actually created a unique martial technique. There were 3 people. The one leading was a sinister-looking old man. His pair of blood-red eyes looked extremely terrifying. On his left, there was a person dressed in armor. His entire body was covered in a silver armor. Even his face was covered tightly. And on his right was a lady holding a bone whip. She was dressed in black. Her curvaceous figure was vividly outlined. The bone whip in her hand was extremely strange, as though it was some kind of star spirit beast spine. Every joint was very distinct. It's me. Tang Tian laughed and stood out. Are you his master? Are you here to fight? Tang Tian floated in the air, displaying a dog paddling posture, his mouth releasing a hoo-hoo-hoo sound. What was strange was, Tang Tian actually looked like he was in the water, continuously paddling, slowly moving forward. And what made Tang Tian the most surprised was that Tang Tian's true power was unable to control the power of the crane, but his martial spirit was able to control the power of the crane very well. Just at this time, a few black dots appeared on the hill far away. Who knew that Tang Tian was about to discover a new toy and immediately became excited. All the spearheads were caused by Tang Tian in front of the group. Haja Air sneered. Xin Li did not only find Yan Jiuji. Only when you die will the Sand Wolf tribe be truly unified, and at that time this desert will be our world. Homa Air, do you think that with these 3 brats who have not even grown hair they can protect your broken village? The man with the mace sneered. Big Boss Xin already controls 6 tribes and you want to rely on your Fire Sand tribe to overturn the heavens? Stop dreaming. Tang Tian's thoughts continued to immerse in his martial technique. The other benefit of the power of the crane was that it allowed his true power to recover much faster. The opponent was extremely fast. Crane's face was green. The old man's companions, upon seeing that Tang Tian was able to block the old man's claw, exposed a look of surprise. Your claw technique is also very powerful. Tang Tian's gaze stared at the old man's blue crystal clear hands. You must also be using a unique martial technique. Furthermore, these 3 strong martial artists had just saved his life. Tang Tian was playing to his heart's content, and from time to time released all sorts of weird sounds. A light flashed in Tang Tian's mind. He suddenly thought about the time when they were pulled into the Demon Sealing Sword's spirit domain by the Crypto Sword Saint. Unless the power of the crane was the spirit domain? Watch me do a handstand spring jump. I jump 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 jump. Haha. Haja Air laughed. Homa Air, what are you saying? In the entire Lupus constellation who is not cannon fodder? The rest of the things could be left to the smarter people to do. The 2 people by the side were immediately moved and looked at Tang Tian in disbelief. Bang! Tang Tian's entire body was enveloped in a layer of faint white mist, giving off a somewhat immortal aura. That was the power of the crane. The power of the crane was extremely mystical, and when Tang Tian raised his hand he naturally had an additional natural feeling. An hour later. Haja was the most surprised. His mouth was wide open and he stared blankly at Tang Tian. He knew the old man's identity, and when he saw the old man appear he was ecstatic, thinking that he would definitely win. Who knew after the two of them clashed head-on, they were actually evenly matched. Haja continued. Let me tell you, the Fire Wolf tribe has not been destroyed yet, is because Exenli has enough confidence to kill you. As long as he kills you, the Fire Wolf tribe will surrender without a fight and he will swallow the entire Fire Wolf tribe. That was what Crane and the rest saw. Tang Tian's body was always shrouded in a faint mist. Tang Tian was immersed in the mystical power of the crane body in his body was constantly changing as though it was alive. Just as the crane body was changing, the true power in his body flowed endlessly, all the true power surging from all directions, colliding with the crane body, annihilating, transforming into even finer true power. Chapter 262. But Tang Yi's blade technique was simple and unadorned, neither fast nor slow. Only when he clashed with the blue claw, the tyrannical power of the blade aura would explode out like thunder. A cold snort, a tall and sturdy figure blocked in front of Tang Tian. It was Tang Yi. Tang Yi's expression was imposing, not angry. The zanbato in his hand was casually placed on the ground, his aura blended together. Tang Tian was stunned to realize that no one cared about him. The southern sky's 42 constellations had different strengths. The disparity was extremely large, but there were a few extremely strong constellations such as Centaurus constellation, Phoenix constellation, Canis Major constellation, Corona Australis constellation. They were all extremely strong constellations, and Centaurus constellation was the strongest constellation in the southern sky's 42 constellations. This person was wearing a Centaurus constellation armor, which was obviously not ordinary. Where did these fellows come from? The middle-aged man who spoke was flustered and exasperated. His body was slightly plump, his eyes were small, but his face was sinister, revealing an indescribable killing intent. The armored warrior introduced himself in a low voice. The spirit general's movements looked casual, but there were no flaws. His own chi, upon approaching the spirit general, seemed to have hit an invisible wall and was unable to advance. I'm just saying. Bing said. Anyways, as long as you give me the person, I don't care if you cheat or steal. Damn it. He was about to kill Hua. The biggest obstacle was swept away and the desert was his world. Who knew halfway through, a few strong fellows would suddenly appear. Tang Tian beamed with joy. You're absolutely right. For you to think like that, you've improved a lot. Tang Tian thought about the few waves of attacks. Could it be that those people were actually feudal marshal's people? The old man's pupils constricted. Bang. Her eyes flashed with electricity. With a seductive look, she twisted her waist and stuck close to Crane. It's Exenli's men. Hua-er's face changed. Hua-er's heart was stirred, her face flushed red. She nodded without hesitation. Yes. Young master is so ruthless. The bone whip woman screamed. The bone whip in her hand was like a bone snake. It rose up strangely and hit the sword chi. Tang Tian, who had nothing to do, immediately became excited. Uncle, what's the matter? About 10 kilometers away from Tang Tian. What problem? Tang Tian asked, puzzled. Both parties were extremely fast. Crane's figure was elegant and at ease, his sword techniques agile. The bone whip lady's bone whip was unpredictable and had many changes. The reason is still unknown. Bing said, this is the news that Bao found out. Crane and the bone whip lady were in a different situation. The more she thought about it, Tang Tian and the other two strengths were already extremely powerful, and there was an even more powerful spirit general, such a luxurious group. Why would they appear in such a small place like Lupus Constellation? Spear of Justice, Ling Su. Ling Su spat out 2 words, his battle intent surging in his chest. The strength of the opponent's aura was definitely not weaker than his. Such an opponent was extremely difficult to find. Hua was startled. An unbelievable thought popped out. Could it be? Young master is so handsome. The bone whip lady said charmingly. I like you the moment I see you. Young master, why don't you follow me? Don't worry, I will take good care of you. The heavy mace suddenly pointed forward, a thunderous roar resonating through the clouds in the sky. Ling Su took out his spear, the twin goat wind bells slowly and rhythmically ringing, floating in the wind. His expression congealed, his orange pupils, flames dancing. Feudal marshal? Tang Tian was baffled. We don't have any grudges with them, right? Suddenly he raised his head and looked into the distance. He faintly felt that someone was spying on them. What was going on? Bring your men and follow behind me. Such a strong spirit, General. Bing seemed to have expected it and said flatteringly, young man, relax. We have already prepared a complete battle plan and will definitely not waste time. His tone immediately changed and said seriously, also we have received news feudal marshal is gathering and their target is us. The most intense was actually the old man and Tang Yi. Tang Tian understood. Uncle wants to pick a talented person from the Lupus people? Just at this time Bing's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. Little Tang Tang, I have something to discuss with you. The old man's entire body emitted a vast and boundless aura, actually enveloping everyone within it. Upon hearing about spending money, Tang Tian could not take it anymore. Hey uncle, you've already spent a lot of money. After saying that, Tang Tian flipped up his horse, his left hand holding onto the blood rush shield, his right hand holding onto the dual-headed mace. These were the spoils of war from defeating the Hua brothers, and he had always kept them. Take down these few tribes? Tang Tian was startled. Uncle, what are you trying to do? Why are you interested in the Lupus people's tribes? Aren't you playing with your training camp? Where exactly did this group of people come from? Beside him was the skinny and small Yan Juji. His face was completely overwhelmed with shock without a trace of blood. Other than the shock, his heart was rejoicing that he escaped quickly. If he had bumped into the spirit general with the Zanbato right from the start, his head would have been separated from his body. After thinking for half a day, Tang Tian could not think of anything, so he decided not to think about it and straightforwardly said, all right, I'll leave the crafty plots and schemes to you guys. Anyways, I'll be in charge of fighting. The sword chi was like the breath of a white crane, bringing along a vast expanse of white mist breaking through the air. Crane's expression was calm. Are you Fan Gu? Centaur constellation, wings of the silver spear, Ing Kong. Bang bang bang, all of the captives were thrown to the ground. No way. Tang Tian was shocked. Uncle, why are you so weak? Why haven't you recruited anyone after so long? Kill. Tang Tian, who was bored to death, suddenly became spirited. Without hesitation he said, throw the captives to the ground. The armored warrior and the bone whip lady beside the old man snorted and released their chi. Bing coughed lightly. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and for a simple matter, why would it trouble a godlike young man? Only such a difficult and deep matter can only belong to you, young man. The old man's claw technique was extremely fast, so fast that it was hard for the naked eye to catch, and every claw was accompanied by an intense cold intent. Between the blue claw images, snowflakes floated down. That's right, the training camp is progressing smoothly. Bing's tone was excited, but very quickly he became embarrassed. But there's a problem now. Centaur constellation? Ling Su snorted, the flames in his eyes burning even brighter. Tang Tian was stunned by Bing's shamelessness and roguishness. Uncle, you're actually this kind of person. As for Ling Su and the armored warrior, it was a different scene. The centaur warrior's body was as fast as lightning, his spear throwing was even more powerful, wandering in all directions. And Ling Su instigated flamingo, like a ball of fiery red flames. The pointed sea spear in his hand was endless. As long as the opponent touched it, they would immediately be dragged into the spear screen. The centaur warrior knew how powerful it was, and was extremely fearful of Ling Su's pointed sea spear. The armored warrior's entire body seemed to be flowing with silver liquid. His lower body was surrounded by a bright silver mist, faintly revealing half of a horse's body. In his hand there was an additional half-a-meter-long silver spear. Today it was time for it to drink blood. Crane's gaze congealed, his slender white palm, unconsciously holding onto the sword hilt. His straight body slightly arched inwards, his entire being was ready to move. He hesitated for a while. But this will take up a lot of time. I want to reach Southern Cross constellation as soon as possible. Oh, young master still knows my name unless young master already has feelings for me? The bone whip lady covered her mouth and laughed. You should have said so earlier. Tonight I will be young master's person. Everyone's gaze looked at Homa Air. Homa Air clenched her teeth. Throw. Bing's voice was extremely awkward. It's not that I'm frustrated. In the past when the army was formed, we never had to worry about the problem of recruiting people. Everyone would break their heads to enter. But now it's more troublesome. There are a few people who came, but their talents are terrible. No one, Bing said helplessly. Other than the two rascals sent by the Mo family, there is no one else in the training camp. Tang Tian, who had nothing to do, scratched his head. This rhythm is not right. How can there be only me and no fights? This godlike young lad is the #1 fighter. The lupus people are actually not bad. Living in such a harsh environment, their temperament is very tenacious, and they are able to endure hardships. And these tribes do not have a leader. If you think it's troublesome, then just spend money since it doesn't cost much. Cannon fodder rather than being cannon fodder for others, why not be cannon fodder for us? Bing said shamelessly. The old man released his qi and caused a chain reaction. Through Yan Jiuji, Exenli had formed a connection with his master's power, and these three people's astonishing strength made Exenli full of confidence. With the power of thunder, he would sweep through the desert and then contend with the three big powerhouses. Cough. Bing felt that this matter was a little hard to believe. That, can you take down these few tribes? Suddenly, the rumbling of horse hooves came from afar, raising up a cloud of dust. A team of more than 500 people was charging towards them aggressively. Exenli clenched his teeth, his face fluctuating. There were actually such dauntless people in the world. Ruining his winning plan. Young lad is wise. Bing once again regained his flattery. Tang Tian's mouth curved to his ears and pretended to say, Uncle's words, although it is a little exaggerated, but you are absolutely right. The surrounding wilderness was quiet. As expected. Both parties were in a deadlock. Tang Tian looked around, his eyes filled with hope, hoping that he would be able to kill another enemy reinforcement or something like that. Huma Air's face changed, her state of mind was once again impacted. Previously, when Tang Yi did not make a move, she thought Tang Yi was just an ordinary spirit general, but she did not expect him to be so powerful. Crane's eyes flashed a cold light. The crane sword in his hand was still in its sheath, stabbing forward. Tang Tian turned to look at Huma Air. Can you still fight? At this time, Bing had already completely lost his moral integrity for his training camp. He flattered wave after wave. In the past, I did not have enough understanding of this point, but please believe me, I have already carried out a deep self-examination and reflection. I finally deeply understand, only by relying on this godlike young lad, the glory of the army, can it once again blossom. Just a mere lupus constellation, just a mere desert to this godlike young lad. It is as easy as reaching out with his hand, success will be achieved. Oh, as the saying goes, who can stop young lad Tang? He was Xianli. Chapter 263. Xianli's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness and bellowed, stop. With his last step deep into the ground, Tang Tian's body paused for a moment, but in the next moment he disappeared. Although his true power was still at the 6th level and did not have any advantage against these martial artists, but he had gained enlightenment on the power of the crane, and the power of his martial techniques had multiplied. Tang Tian exhaled, the mace in his hand swung, wung, the vibrating sound swept through the air, and a few blade auras clashed with the rod auras. The martial artists of the Fire Wolf tribe loudly agreed. Their expressions changed drastically. Before they could even react, Qin Xiaobei's expression changed drastically. Idiots. The sound of the blade and shield clashing could be heard from far away. The horizontal blade was struck by Tang Tian's blood rush shield, and Tang Tian crashed straight into his chest. This person took advantage of the time when Tang Tian's old power had just dissipated, and had not yet recovered, and attacked accurately. But he did not expect that the crane body in Tang Tian's body was constantly changing, and his power was always changing. Bang. Not good. So what if you are a Heaven Road list martial artist? Tang Tian's legs sank and his feet sank into the ground. But Exenli knew it was not the time to regret. His expression was solemn, his eyes opened wide and bellowed, Sand Rider's iron guards. Get off the horse. Follow me. An unstoppable force struck his chest and his expression froze. Pooh, he spat out a mouthful of blood and his body was sent flying for 70 m, and when he landed he was no longer breathing. The rest of them felt as though they had struck a thick wall. Their chests were stuffy and the true power in their bodies stagnated. They could not catch their breath and were overwhelmed with shock. Tang Tian's fierceness had exceeded their imaginations. Huma Air was provoked by Tang Tian's actions, and the fighting intent in her chest was boiling. She took a deep breath and fiercely reined in the horse's head, and turned around to pounce towards the enemy, and raised the curved horse in her hands. Kill! Tang Tian felt an indescribable joy. His brute force and true power, under the power of the crane, were actually extremely compatible and perfectly fused. The extremely ordinary moves in his hands became shockingly powerful. Could it be that this brat had been fighting since he was in his mother's womb? Kill! Everyone roared in agreement. Their faces were filled with malevolence. Tang Tian had Ling Su, a spear expert, by his side. Although he had never practiced spear techniques, he had fought countless battles with Ling Su. He was no stranger to dealing with spear martial artists. Xin Li's eyes were like torches. Not only would the increased speed of the horse not pose a threat to Tang Tian, it would also provide cover for the unusually slippery Tang Tian. In that wave of attacks just now, several people were killed. Tang Tian suddenly launched a sneak attack from below the horse's belly. The air was filled with the faint cries of the demonic cat. His elusive and unpredictable figure was like a ghost. It was as if he could always predict attacks in advance. His attacks were also strange and unpredictable. He would suddenly disappear into the belly of the horse and suddenly shoot out from a blind spot. His attacks were extremely fast, and every attack was aimed at the opponent's weak point. Sizzle. At the same time, a low and vigorous whistling sound came out in the air. The power of the crane coiling around the mace was terrifying. Seeing that the opponent was getting closer and closer, Tang Tian's eyes suddenly became fierce. He fiercely jumped up from the horse's back. His sudden action caused everyone to be surprised. The few people at the front did not expect that Tang Tian would suddenly jump up from the horse's back. Back team, abandon your horses and meet the enemy. A blade aura as bright as snow, sharp and threatening. It went straight for the back of Tang Tian's head. It was as if Tang Tian had eyes at the back of his head. His body shrunk and the blade aura brushed past Tang Tian's back. The cold blade aura caused Tang Tian's hair to stand. Heaven's Road Grade Martial Artist. Another Heaven's Road Grade Martial Artist. The team stopped. They were all elites and their strength was formidable. Furthermore, they were martial artists that lived in the desert. All of them were extremely skilled in horse riding. Tang Tian used his intuition to the fullest. Xin Li's small eyes squinted. His killing intent was biting cold. His heart was resolute. He raised his arm and roared, "Kill!" Xin Li was shocked and angry. In just one move he had lost around 20 men. These 500 men were the elites that he had carefully selected. Every one of them was a treasure. In the blink of an eye, 20 of them had died. How could he not feel the pain? Tang Tian's display of strength caused him to be overwhelmed with shock. But when Tang Tian turned around and chased after them, this action that was filled with disdain made Xin Li's blood rush to his head. Fire Scythe Ghost Claw was ranked last on the unique board, but it was a 100% unique martial technique. Borrowing the chaos, he tiptoed and swept out like a shadow. Like a galloping horse, he dragged the mace on the ground, creating a deep ditch. Dirt flew everywhere. The surrounding people were all stunned by Tang Tian's ferocity. With just a wave of his hand, he had killed 2 Heaven's Road grade martial artists. Such a terrifying martial artist, when had they ever seen one before? Hua Air and the rest who were following behind him, all had looks of disbelief on their faces. Tang Tian's riding skills were terrible. What he could do was to prevent himself from falling off the back of the horse. But this horse was a well-trained war horse. When it ran, it was like a gust of wind. This battle, no matter what, he had to win. Tang Tian's collision just now, the crane body in his body had changed 3 times. The explosive power was extremely powerful. The cold light in his hands flickered in the middle of the crowd. Buzz. When Xin Li saw Tang Tian bringing Hua Air and 20 over men, directly rushing over, his heart was immediately at ease. Flaunting his might with the mace, Tang Tian's fighting intent suddenly flared up. 15 seconds. Tang Tian's eyes suddenly opened up. He had actually killed the enemy's entire team. Both parties rushed towards each other. Their speed was extremely fast. To Tang Tian, it was undoubtedly a natural battlefield. Such a high-speed battle, both parties' reaction time was pitiful. But to Tang Tian, his strong intuition allowed him to sense danger and the intention of the enemy's attack in advance. Xin Li's face changed. He then realized he had underestimated the young man's strength and overestimated the strength of his own men. Those martial artists that he had recruited, How would they have the heart to fight to the death? Normally they would naturally be powerful, but once they met a hard battle they would not be able to do so. In front of him he disappeared. The sparks from the fire scythe ghost claw were like fireworks, but it was filled with the aura of death. Everyone sucked in cold air. There was actually someone in the world who was so ferocious. But at this time the others also reacted. A few figures jumped down from their horses and rushed towards him. Power of the crane. A cold aura pierced through. The spear was like a dragon. Bang! Tang Tian kept his mace and used the bleeding cat blade scythe. A ghostly figure flashed and disappeared. Tang Tian suddenly realized his extremely solid fundamental martial techniques, in such a chaotic battle, were extremely useful. Power of the crane. These simple fundamental martial techniques were filled with killing power. When their gazes landed on Tang Tian's position, their pupils constricted. A spark blossomed in the air, accurately hitting the cold aura of the spear tip. His body was like a rubber ball that was hit by a strong force and flew out at an astonishing speed. The few martial artists behind him could not dodge in time. Bang bang bang, all of them screamed out, spat out blood and fell off their horses. A few cold auras mixed with the lingering sound of cats crying, and a few streams of blood shot into the air. 4 martial artists covered their throats. Their eyes opened wide like the eyes of a dying fish, their faces filled with disbelief and deep fear. Borrowing the momentum of the horses, Tang Tian's leap was extremely fast. Kill! A roar suddenly exploded in their ears and they woke up from their dreams. They took the initiative to dodge and immediately made Tang Tian even more unstoppable. Everyone in the group only felt that Tang Tian was like a shooting star. Suddenly rushing in front of them, the blurred afterimages in a moment covered their vision. The martial artists at the back of the group all abandoned their horses and turned to rush towards Tang Tian. At the position where Tang Tian was standing, there was actually no one. 2 Heavens Road grade martial artists were killed in one move. There was nothing more impactful than this scene. The other Heavens Road grade martial artists' hearts jumped. Other than the 20 Heavens Road grade martial artists who were absolutely loyal to Exin Li, the other 50 Heavens Road grade martial artists were all recruited by Exin Li from various tribes. All of them were old foxes and knew how to protect themselves better than the average person. The scene immediately became chaotic. The 500 people he brought were the elites under him, and there were more than 70 Heavens Road grade martial artists. With such power, even if a Heaven Road list martial artist were to clash with them, it would only be a dead end. The reason why he brought people out was because he was not sure if the 3 martial artists on his side could win. How was this possible? Wherever the mace swept across, as long as it touched, it was as if they were struck by lightning and flew out spitting out blood. 3 figures screamed miserably as they were sent flying. They actually broke through the enemy's formation. Tang Tian immediately killed his way into the group of martial artists who abandoned their horses. At this time, of course, it was to let others exhaust this perverse true power. That was the way of the king. When had he, Exin Li, ever been disregarded? He jumped in fright and retreated in panic, but his chest was in pain. The fire scythe ghost claw collided with the spear tip. The violent true power immediately surged into the opponent's spear body. Dang. Furthermore, such a terrifying martial artist was just a 16 or 17-year-old young lad. Tang Tian's face still had some childishness, but when he fought he was extremely experienced and ruthless. Even the old foxes who had been around for decades could not help but have their eyelids twitch. The 20-odd guards around Exin Li all dismounted at the same time, protecting Exin Li, silently moving forward. The other martial artists all opened up a path. 22 Sanchi steel guards, every one of them was a Heavens Road grade martial artist. This was the core strength in Exin Li's hands. Exin Li displayed extraordinary calmness. Tang Tian was already less than 30 m away from them. Tang Tian squinted his eyes as though there was an electric light flickering deep inside. Bang! The martial artist who bore the brunt of the attack turned pale. In a panic he raised the sword in his hand. The power that could topple mountains and overturn the seas penetrated through the sword. He did not even have the time to scream and felt as though he was struck by a huge beast. You can't take it anymore? The true power in his body surged. If Tang Tian was paying attention, he would realize that his mace was enveloped in a thin layer of white mist, lingering indefinitely. He stood there in a daze. After a moment he lowered his head to look at his chest. There was a blood hole. His consciousness was getting further and further away. He pounced and fell to the ground. The opponent did not expect that his blade would actually miss, and even more did not expect that Tang Tian would actually use such a method to counterattack. In that moment he panicked. The long blade in his hand was placed horizontally in front of his chest. Turning his head to look, the figure that seemed to be disappearing in the wind actually turned back to attack the opponent's army. The figure in front of him flashed and Tang Tian appeared like a ghost in front of him. Heaven's Road grade martial artists were not a threat to Tang Tian, and the other martial artists were even less of a match for Tang Tian. Wherever Tang Tian passed, people and horses would be thrown off their feet, and the martial artists would fall like wheat being cut down. In that moment the spear martial artist only felt that the spear in his hand was like a red-hot iron rod. His face was overwhelmed with shock. He subconsciously activated his true power, wanting to suppress Tang Tian's true power. Total annihilation. How could there be such a perverse person in the world? Without thinking, Tang Tian, who was curled up, exerted strength with his toes and fiercely knocked backwards. Chapter 264. This was a scream. Tang Tian's left hand's blood rush shield received the hammer. His left arm heated up. Such a powerful force. The ice-cold peacock true power fused with his crane true power, the sharp and ever-changing crane true power, as though it was dyed with ice, immediately became extremely cold. Under the power of the crane body in his body was constantly changing. The true power was endless, extremely abundant. Tang Tian suddenly realized he actually did not need to take a breath. In the past, whenever the crane body dispersed and gathered, Tang Tian would need to take a breath. Was it because of the power of the crane? Tang Tian was instantly in danger. Not good. He looked rough, but his thoughts were meticulous. He was not arrogant enough to think that he could defeat Tang Tian with just one move. The terrifying power that Tang Tian had displayed had shocked him. He knew that he was not Tang Tian's opponent. A silver-blue dot suddenly lit up from the deep brown rod aura. The Sand Rider Iron Guard held onto his abdomen, fresh blood flowing out from his fingers. His face was filled with pain and fear. The air blades disappeared and the man heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly his face changed. He could not see Tang Tian's shadow. Blue peacock. Papa. The battlefield was filled with countless of chaotic air currents. Any small flow of air would become Tang Tian's helper. His figure suddenly disappeared. Tang Tian's figure disappeared again. Just at this time, in the depths of Tang Tian's eyes, a needle-sized light aura suddenly lit up, as though a star was flying out from the endless void in his eyes. The changes in the surroundings did not escape Tang Tian's intuition. The danger was not only limited to the three of them. Behind the two Sand Rider Iron Guards on the left, one of the Sand Rider Iron Guards had already pulled his bronze bow, the cold arrow pointed straight at Tang Tian. And on the right and in front of him, there were three Sand Rider Iron Guards with concealed weapons in their hands. In an instant he charged into the thick and powerful rod shadows. The Sand Cavalry Iron Guard who wielded the rod was overjoyed. His rod technique was called Swallowing Mountain Rod, and it was known for its thick and powerful force. Now that his opponent had charged into his rod shadows, it was his chance. Tang Tian did not stop at all. With a wave of the blood rush shield on his left arm, a blade-like air blade flew out from the shield and headed straight for one of the Sand Cavalry Guards. The man was shocked and hurriedly waved his iron fists. Two condensed fist auras hit the air blades. Originally, Tang Tian thought that this was a lightness skill to hide his body, but it turned out to be an excellent weapon in a chaotic battle. Tang Tian acted as if he didn't feel anything and continued to walk forward indifferently. Only the light on his fingertips became a little brighter. A Sand Cavalry Iron Guard made a circle with the long rod in his hand. A low and deep whistling sound was heard, and the muddy yellow shadow of the rod flew towards Tang Tian. Another Sand Cavalry Iron Guard brandished the long blade in his hand, and a thin snow-white blade aura coiled around Tang Tian like silk. Another Sand Cavalry Iron Guard wielded a broad axe, his eyes glaring angrily. With a roar he waved out a fiery red axe aura, straight towards Tang Tian. It was as if he was pulled into an endless void. Behind him, a blue figure that was more than 3 feet wide appeared, and it had the appearance of a peacock. The ice-cold peacock true power circulated in Tang Tian's body. Tang Tian's state of mind slowly calmed down as if he was soaking in ice water. Unknowingly on Tang Tian's face, there was an additional indifference and coldness similar to that of a peacock. The crane body in his body was constantly changing, and the true power was circulating endlessly, dispersing into his 5 bones and 4 limbs. It was extremely comfortable. Although they were well trained, they were not afraid of death. Especially with Tang Tian's extraordinary performance, they could not see any hope of winning. An unprecedented sense of control surfaced from the bottom of his heart. Swallowing Mountain was very powerful and everyone was very clear on it. The surrounding Sand Cavalry Iron Guards were all ready to unleash their killing techniques, and were waiting for Tang Tian to clash head-on with it. Once his true power stopped for a moment, it would be the best opportunity. Poof! Tang Tian walked slowly as though he was taking a stroll in the park. The enemies around him did not seem to see him. The few people around him immediately understood his intention, and their faces revealed joy. Although the figure was somewhat blurry, but they could clearly feel the coldness and arrogance of the peacock. The more complicated the terrain, the more complicated the airflow, and the more unpredictable the wind would be. Borrowing the power of the hammer, Tang Tian slid backwards like he was on ice. Suddenly he lowered his body, and as though he had eyes on his back, he dodged the Sand Cavalry Iron Guard's blade aura, and the bleeding cat blade scythe in his hand quietly swept past the opponent's waist. Silver armor. Exen Li's pupils constricted, but the killing intent in his heart had already risen. His willpower was firm and did not waver. Exen Li was now standing at the edge of a cliff. If he retreated a step, he would be smashed into pieces. Not to mention that Tang Tian had an additional silver armor. Even if he had more things, he would not be able to retreat from this battle. Tang Tian decided to ask Big Brother Jing how when the time came, as he knew too little about armors and martial spirits. Peacock true power. Tang Tian was surprised. The connection between his martial spirit and peacock seemed to be different from before. Tang Tian's heart moved, and a silver line of fire flew out from his martial spirit's silver flame, and entered the blue figure behind him. When the silver line of fire connected with the blue figure, a cold and austere true power continuously flowed from the blue figure behind him and entered his body. His target from the start was Xian Li. No matter how strong he was, he would definitely not be able to kill all 500 of them, and the only effective way to defeat this team was to go straight to the center. When the last piece of skin on Tang Tian's body was covered by the blue peacock armor, the coiling power of the crane was like a thin layer of air, pressed between the armor and Tang Tian's skin. 22 Sand Riders' Iron Guards, like quicksand, quietly swept towards Tang Tian. But the mechanical weapon was completely different, although it used star rocks, but the main body of power was still the martial artist's true power. It was like a true power amplifier, amplifying the martial artist's true power. The scene was a mess. Tang Tian's heart was filled with shock. He thought that his usage of peacock was already very deep. He did not expect that. He actually felt that he had not even touched the door. A silver light appeared beneath his feet. A silver light followed his body, and with a speed visible to the naked eye, the silver light flashed and the silver armor wrapped around Tang Tian's body. Tang Tian's body trembled. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Tang Tian was infected by Peacock's true power to be as calm as ice, but suddenly jumped, his cold lips, like a thawing ice field, lightly muttered. But at that moment, the blue Peacock's change was undoubtedly a timely help. Kill! 10 fireflies, dropped from Tang Tian's fingertips, drew 16 agile light scars in the air, and flew at a moderate speed into the crowd. Tang Tian's body trembled again. Tang Tian, who was in battle, was not stupid at all. The true power in Tang Tian's body was unprecedentedly abundant. Tang Tian suddenly started to increase his speed. The armor itself contained an extremely strong power. They were born from the constellation laws and formed one body after countless years of accumulating an astonishing amount of power. It was like a huge treasure trove, and the martial artist needed to activate and open this treasure trove. A few Sand Riders' Iron Guards looked at each other, their eyes flashing a resolute look, and at the same time they roared and pounced towards Tang Tian. Peacock's change caused Tang Tian's mind to tremble. Wind concealment. As though he was hit by a heavy fist, his entire body flew out, his chest caved in, and he was no longer breathing. The big net did not have a single flaw. The surrounding Sand Riders' Iron Guards were overwhelmed with shock. At that moment they did not care about anything else, and all of their killing techniques were aimed at Tang Tian. All the routes were blocked. No one saw clearly how Tang Tian escaped from their killing techniques, especially when Tang Tian did not pull away from them, but instead attacked them, and their formation was immediately broken. Exen Li only felt an extreme sense of danger enveloping his heart. His heart jumped. He forced himself to calm down and bellowed, "Kill!" The other Sand Riders' iron guards were all terrified. They had never seen such a killing god before. In the blink of an eye, 7 to 8 of them had fallen. They could not even touch the corner of Tang Tian's clothes. His strength was too terrifying. Tang Tian suddenly grinned, but he did not know how cold and indifferent his smile was. Unique martial technique, killing technique. Demon King Blazing Firefly. He fiercely bellowed, all the true power in his body surging. The color of the rod became darker like a huge mouth. It swallowed Tang Tian. Swallowing Mountain Rod, killing technique. Swallowing Mountain. The rod-wielding iron guard opened his eyes wide, his bulging eyes filled with disbelief. He could not even block one of Tang Tian's moves. Fire Scythe Ghost Claw. Just like the blue of the peacock. Pursing his lips, he became cold and stern. Bloom, Demon King Blazing Firefly. His slow footsteps quietly increased in frequency. Tang Tian's upper body did not move an inch, as though he was flowing with silver light. The hanging cat blade was like a willow leaf swaying in the wind, the tip of the blade blossoming with the size of a grain of rice blue light. To be able to become a purple gold grade card, it meant that this martial technique had the potential to become a unique martial technique. Its power could be seen. This light body technique's most unique point was to be able to borrow the wind, like its name, hide in the wind. Its usage of the wind, which was the flow of air, had reached an unimaginable level. A ray of blue light instantly pierced through the rod shadow, directly piercing into the rod-wielding iron guard's throat. He did not have time to retreat. A ray of dazzling blue sparks suddenly scuttled up from below his body, entering his chest. At this moment he deeply experienced the difference between armor and mechanical weapons. Suddenly, a few fireflies made them feel as though they had suddenly returned to the summer night. The surrounding fighting noises suddenly became far away, and it became quiet. He was scheming to use his strongest technique, to give Tang Tian some trouble, and thus give his comrades a chance. They had the advantage in numbers. As long as Tang Tian revealed a flaw, they would definitely win. Peacock true power was extremely unique. It was extremely cold, flowing through his body. His gaze became ice cold without a trace of warmth, but his mind became even more active. In such a huge battlefield, every minute detail was extremely clear. Tang Tian appeared behind the archer like a ghost. The archer seemed to sense something. His face changed, but before he could react he felt a sharp pain on his back. The strength in his body was instantly sucked out and he fell to the ground. Chapter 265. Exen Li, who was behind him, suddenly fell to the ground. Tang Tian. She had long noticed that Tang Yi's temperament was unique. Everything he did was meticulous, swift and decisive. His words were straightforward. Until the word army came out, she then realized. That was the typical style of a soldier. Why did I only realize it now? What surprised Tang Yi was that Bing nodded his head, as expected of a gold-ranked staff sergeant, resolute and unwavering. But Staff Sergeant, please take note, with your tactical attainments, you are still unable to participate in the discussion on the strategic level. But Staff Sergeant, please be at ease. Master's safety is the foundation of the revival of the army. I will not neglect this point. But I believe you also understand Master is currently in a period of rapid growth. Any growth will not be without risks. Although I do not need to explain all this to you, but you are my first colleague, I do not wish for any misunderstandings to occur between us, although I know you will definitely follow orders. It was as though Hua Air saw a glistening golden thigh. Tang Yi was quiet for a moment, then bowed to Bing seriously. I understand. Master Bing, thank you for your explanation. A cold light swept past Exen Li's throat. Plop. He did not expect the power of the crane to actually cause the star treasure to evolve. Crane's eyes lit up. Even with his astonishing self-control, his heart could not help but be excited. Ling Su and Crane heard the commotion. One from the front, the other from the back, rushed over. Suddenly, 3 figures flew into the distance. There were too few records of the power of the crane, but Crane remembered one point: the power of the crane could connect with the martial spirit. After evolving, the power of the star treasure was too strong. 10 beautiful and harmless firefly lights entered the bodies of the 10 Sand Riders. When Tang Tian sat up and saw Tang Yi beside him holding onto the Zanbato, his heart was secretly moved knowing that Tang Yi was worried about him. He laughed out loud. Don't worry, I was careless for a moment but it feels so good. What? Hua Air and the martial artists under her awoke from their stupor, and all went up to subdue Exon Li's men. Crane was not willing to owe them a favor. The evolution of the star treasure was not just once, but it was a gradual process. The more the star treasure evolved, the more power the star treasure could use. When the number of evolutions accumulated to a certain degree, the star treasure would be able to communicate with the star constellation, and project the power of the constellation onto the star treasure. At that time, the secret treasure had the power to change the sky and change the sun. Where did Lord Tang Tian come from? She was already completely subdued by Tang Tian's peerlessly powerful strength. But hearing Tang Yi's words, she was stunned to discover that she still underestimated Lord Tang Tian. To be able to become an army master at such a young age, this kind of terror completely toppled her world. There was not a single sound in the huge battlefield. He spoke in a typical military style, simple and direct. In this era, to be able to have an army, they were all powerful constellations. Lupus constellation did not have a true army. The cultivator fighting Ling Su looked like he had seen a ghost, his eyes filled with deep fear as he muttered, "Artifact. Evolution." Crane's shocked expression disappeared faster than Ling Su, his eyes revealing a look of deep thought. Ling Su did not know about the evolution of the star treasure, but Crane knew. But he did not know about it from the inheritance of the heavenly Crane constellation, but from the records that his mother gave him. The few remaining Sand Riders' Iron Guards had already lost their will to resist. Needless to say, the other martial artists were already scared out of their wits. The sounds of weapons dropping onto the ground could be heard as they all threw their weapons on the ground. The peacock true power was still flowing in his body, but the cold look in Tang Tian's eyes had disappeared, and what replaced it was the warmth of the sun after the winter. It was the old man and the other two who were running for their lives. The short moment of silence, the frightened gazes, the frozen expressions, the silence was like a painting. Army master. But, under certain special conditions, this gigantic treasury could be opened, and the power of the star treasure would undergo an earth-shattering change as though it was evolving, and that was why it was called the star treasure evolution. Bing's poker face revealed a bitter smile and he muttered to himself, "When will there be a major general? If there is a more powerful major general, then I don't have to use my brain. A major general is not realistic, a colonel is also not realistic, alright, a staff officer with some ability can make do." Ling Su and Crane looked at each other, a flash of surprise in their eyes. Tang Yi rarely spoke, but today he actually took the initiative to make a decision which was slightly abnormal. But it was good that Tang Yi's decision was the best choice, and the two of them nodded their heads. He quickly made a bold guess. The thing that caused Tang Tian's star treasure to evolve was the power of the crane. Even Ling Su and the rest who were in an intense battle stopped and stared blankly at them. Tang Yi took a step and appeared beside Tang Tian. He bent down to check and then raised his head. "I'm fine, I'm just overworked, I'll be fine after a few days of rest." "Master Bing, please don't be too hasty," Tang Yi said without fear. He looked at Bing's eyes. "Master Tang Tian is the army master, how can you personally take the risk? You are also Master Tang Tian's subordinate. Please put Master's safety as your first priority." The bodies of the 10 Sand Riders exploded, the blue flames soared into the sky like 10 blue roses in full bloom. The bone-chilling cold followed the wanton flames, pervading out, the sky actually started to flutter with snowflakes. The silver armor on Tang Tian's body flowed down like water, and when the last silver armor disappeared, Tang Tian, who was standing straight, fell to the ground. Coincidentally, he knew the essence of the star treasure's evolution was the evolution of the martial spirit inside the star treasure. Without saying anything, Hua Air immediately led the way. "Let's go to the Fire Wolf tribe first," Tang Yi said directly. But at that moment no one had the mood to chase after them. Everyone had not recovered from the shock. Bing seemed to know that Tang Yi was looking for him. His poker face became serious and nodded, "Staff Sergeant Tang Yi." But Crane also knew the evolution of star treasures was extremely difficult. The ancient records did not mention how to evolve star treasures. Crane secretly shook his head. His unfathomable aunt definitely knew. But he did not want to ask her because of the matter with his father that year. His mother had a huge quarrel with the other side. Although his mother's relationship with the other side was much better, but she still stayed at Heavenly Crane Constellation, which showed her attitude. Just a few sentences made Homa Air, who was not far away, tremble with fear. Star treasures were produced along with the constellation, and were accompanying treasures. They themselves contained a portion of the laws and power of the constellation. To a martial artist, this power was astonishing. It was like a huge treasure trove. But in truth, most people could only use a small portion of the power of the star treasures. The majority of the power was sealed in the star treasure and could not be used by others. Between the explosion that shook the mountains and the blue flames that soared to the sky, the snowflakes fluttered in the wind, sweeping past the perfectly straight silver figure, adding a touch of poignant beauty to the bitter battlefield. With that, Tang Yi left the recruit barracks. Bang! Tang Yi's gaze swept across the recruit barracks. Discovering Bing's figure, he strode to Bing's side and said, "Master Bing." The troops quickly set off, and throughout the entire journey, Tang Yi held onto his gigantic Zanbato, guarding by Tang Tian's side. This scene had an indescribable charm, imprinted in everyone's heart. Ling Su subconsciously held onto the silver spear in his hand tightly. Star treasure evolution? Exin Li stared blankly as Tang Tian walked in front of him. There was no one beside him. Just now, when Tang Tian released the Demon King Blazing Firefly, the majority of the targets were the Sand Rider's iron guards beside Exin Li. This guess made him excited. Ever since Tang Tian gained enlightenment on the power of the crane, Crane had been pondering on it every day. He did not have Tang Tian's astonishing talent, but his accumulation of the crane sex martial techniques was much more solid. He already had some ideas on how to cultivate the power of the crane. Seeing that there was no danger, Tang Yi quietly left, and returned to the recruit barracks behind the cross door. Exin Li's lips trembled, but no words came out. His face was ashen, his eyes filled with despair. But he was extremely intelligent. Tang Tian's star treasure had just completed an evolution. In this period of time, if Tang Tian had any changes, it would be in 3 areas: gaining enlightenment on the power of the crane, training in the wind concealment, and the air shield strike technique. These 2 martial techniques obviously could not cause the star treasure to evolve, so the only possibility was the power of the crane. Tang Tian opened his eyes drowsily and said in a daze, did I fall asleep again? Where is this? We are on the way to the Fire Wolf tribe. Tang Yi said, Master, in the future, please don't do such things. As the leader of the army, you should not be personally in danger. The recruit barracks is too small and cannot produce a junior officer. Junior officer. I have to think of a way. She suddenly had a premonition the tribe's fate could very possibly be turned upside down because of her encounter this time. No matter what, I have to hug this thigh tightly. It was the first time Ling Su heard of such a term. He did not know what it meant, but he secretly remembered it in his heart. Tang Tian's display of strength made him almost unable to believe his own eyes. Heaven's road-grade martial artists in front of him were like vegetables being chopped. Such a ferocious and crazy performance made Ling Su dumbstruck. Ling Su and Crane exclaimed in surprise and rushed towards Tang Tian, but a figure was faster than them. Tang Yi. Could it be that he was usually hiding his strength? And the sword in my hand. Tang Tian turned and left. His cold voice did not have a trace of warmth. Surrender or die. Ling Su and Crane heaved a sigh of relief. The 2 of them looked at each other and then looked at the black mass of captives, feeling a headache. Crane took a deep breath, his gaze once again becoming deep. Without question, Tang Tian's background was not ordinary. As long as they hugged onto Master Tang Tian's thigh tightly, the tribe would be able to change the difficult situation they were in. Homa Air secretly decided, no matter what request Master had for her, she would definitely not reject him. On the 3rd day, Tang Tian woke up. Master Bing did not speak nonsense. Tang Yi was clear of his own abilities. Commanding 20 people to complete the orders was already his limit. Chapter 266. Not far from the Fire Wolf tribe, in a small valley, Tang Tian and the other 2 were huddled together. The 3 of them immediately congealed. It actually has the ability to regenerate itself. Crane muttered. Sigh. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Tang Tian opened his eyes wide as though he had heard wrongly, with a face of grievance. Ling Su, in your heart, I am actually this kind of person? This makes me sad. We are brothers, good brothers, loyal. I have always been loyal to my brothers. I have always been loyal to my brothers and bravery. After listening to Crane's explanation, Tang Tian basically believed him. Seems like you guys are very free to actually have the time to fight amongst yourselves. Someone is sharpening his blade preparing to kill you. We will test after fighting. Crane nodded his head. That is reasonable, the peacock is a feathered armor, not a heavy armor. Let us test 50% of our true power. The blue peacock's appearance changed. The most obvious change was that in the center of every silver scale, there was an additional azure blue thread, like the meridians of a leaf. Seeking death. Let's go and kill them all now. On the rocks of the cliff, the blade marks were as thin as paper but extremely deep. But the biggest change was the performance of the blue peacock. Tang Tian retreated a few steps before stabilizing himself. Ling Su, who was at the side, sneered. Do you think everyone is as stupid as you? A cold aura lit up, the spear shot out like a dragon. He wants them to witness our victory. Crane said calmly. But are you trying to intimidate them? Or subdue them? Don't tell me you guys are interested in this barren land? A silver and blue saber light, only 5 feet wide, silently flew out. Before the two of them could react, the blade aura entered the 500m cliff wall. It was as though it had cut into something soft, leaving behind an extremely fine blade mark on the wall. The blade aura was as fast as lightning. Crane's evaluation was very accurate. Ling Su did not continue arguing with Tang Tian. He was also extremely curious about the evolution of star treasures. He was not interested in other star treasures, but he was the same as Crane. The silver spear in his hand was not an ordinary item. However, his teacher did not tell him the origin and name of this silver spear. Even so, he could still sense that this silver spear was extraordinary. He had always suspected that this silver spear was actually a secret treasure. Tang Tian understood Bing very well. Upon seeing Bing's act, he knew that he definitely had an idea. Hey uncle, don't talk nonsense, just tell me your plan. They must be tired of living. How dare you set your sights on us? Kill them. I need to use true power to protect my body. Tang Tian shouted. It's 1 meter deep. Tang Tian's voice came from behind them. He had cut off the connection with the peacock, and the cold, murderous intent around him disappeared. When the peacock true power entered his body, his state of mind became ice cold and everything around him became extremely clear. Tang Tian felt that something was extremely similar to Crane's explanation. He suddenly had an idea and said, let me use peacock true power to try. Yes. Ling Su nodded his head without hesitation and sneered, you are a person who can even slice off a mosquito's leg, what else can't you do? Checking the point of impact, the scale that was pierced had cracks on it, but a strange scene happened. All the cracks could be seen with the naked eye, quickly disappearing, only the blue line in the middle of the scale became lighter. Those who have just surrendered naturally cannot be used, they lack loyalty and the possibility of us using them is too low. Bing continued. The Fire Wolf tribe has too few people, there are only 10 Heaven Road grade martial artists. It is like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. So we can only rely on ourselves. Tang Tian and Ling Su were immediately distracted by Bing's words, and both of them scolded. Good. Before Tang Tian finished his sentence, he used Tan Tue blade and kicked out. Chua. Bing's lazy voice came out, and Sky Tiger's huge body appeared in front of the three of them. Tang Tian and the rest had already arrived at the Fire Wolf tribe for 2 days, and the entire Fire Wolf tribe respected Tang Tian like a god. Tang Tian's glorious battle record had long been spread by Huoma Air and her subordinates who had personally witnessed the world-shocking battle. Bing immediately reacted and secretly cursed he had let the cat out of the bag. Come. Today it is either you die or I die. Ling Su's killing intent soared. Tang Tian rubbed his chest and muttered, but I am still unable to completely isolate the power. If I do not use true power to protect my body will be bruised. 10,000 people scale. Tang Tian's face was as black as a pot. The living environment of Lupus constellation was extremely cruel, and the law of the strong was more obvious than other constellations. He, Crane and Ling Su ran to the valley to study the newly evolved peacock. This is just one evolution. Ling Su was dumbstruck. If it were a second evolution or a third evolution, wouldn't it be invincible? His martial spirit Silver Flame flew out a silver line of fire and entered the peacock's martial spirit. In a moment the ice-cold peacock true power continuously entered his body, and the world in Tang Tian's eyes immediately became ice cold and clear. Ding. If it's broken, don't look for me to compensate, Ling Su said to Tang Tian with a face of caution. Crane muttered, congenital deficiency. Peacock's body is a bronze armor. If we say that the potential of a silver star treasure is a big treasure trove. The potential of a bronze star treasure is a small treasure trove. When bronze evolves to silver, actually you have already opened its treasure trove and stimulated a portion of its potential, allowing it to complete its evolution. And after this evolution, I'm afraid its potential has already been stimulated. Why? Tang Tian and Ling Su asked at the same time. Tang Tian and Ling Su shouted at the same time. The two of them realized that the other party actually said the same thing as them and glared at each other. Tang Tian's last two words, my money, were filled with an indescribable pain and sorrow. He inserted himself between the two of them and raised both of his palms. We still have an important test. Ling Su's eyes revealed a trace of shock, although he was not interested in star treasures, but he had some understanding of the market. Star treasures that were able to self-repair were extremely rare and extremely expensive. Tang Tian was enraged. You're the stupid one. What spear of justice? I think it's a spear of stupidity. Bing immediately flattered him, as expected of a godlike young man, to have eyes that can see through everything. Crane had already appeared in front of Tang Tian, carefully inspecting the position that was stabbed and said, the defense is very good, there are no traces. Ling Su's 30% true power spear should be comparable to a Heaven Road grade martial artist's normal martial technique attack. That also means a Heaven Road grade martial artist's normal martial technique attack will not be able to break the peacock's defense. They had seen Tang Tian's Tan-Tue blade the most, and naturally knew how powerful it was. Ling Su was like a cat that had its tail stepped on, and immediately flew into a rage. Surname Tang, you can insult me but you can't insult my spear. Let's duel. Let me tell you what is called a man's conviction. The first test was the defense. From the start, the blue peacock's defense was very ordinary. Star treasures evolving is extremely difficult. As the number of evolutions increases, the difficulty will increase exponentially. Crane shook his head. How can it be so easy? And I'm afraid it will be very difficult for the peacock to evolve a second time. Tang Tian quickly finished looking and felt weird. Why did you invite the leaders of the other tribes? They will not help us. Crane's head was suddenly in pain. He used his hand to touch his forehead. These two rascals, why can't they stop for a moment? Feudal Marshal's people have already found your route. Bing said with a rare serious tone. They are currently closing in on you. Oh right, this time they are moving out in full force. Other than Big Brother Wu Taiyu who did not move, the other three Heaven Road list martial artists of Feudal Marshal are all moving out. Other than that, there are also a large number of Heaven Road grade martial artists. The number could possibly reach about 100. These people are not like the motley crew under Xian Li in Feudal Marshal, to be chosen as the elites. Other than having the strength of a Heaven Road grade martial artist, they also need to have been in Feudal Marshal for more than 5 years. Their fighting abilities are very strong. Crane said helplessly, it's righteousness that reaches the clouds. They treat each other with sincerity. Alright, let us take a look what exactly is going on with the star treasures evolving. Ling Su, use 30% of your true power first. You want to humiliate yourself, huh? Then I will fulfill your wish. Tang Tian stared angrily. Tang Tian was also shocked by the Tan-Tue blade. Wow, so strong. As expected of Crane. Bing praised, then immediately complained. No choice, the Fire Wolf tribe has too few people. I lowered my standards and only picked 20 people. My training camp is built according to the scale of 10,000 people. A 3M wide silver blade aura with a sharp whistle flew out, flying for more than 30 m in the air before disappearing. In front of the cliff, Ling Su and Crane's faces were rather unnatural. Tang Tian said unhappily, am I that kind of person? Come and try. Crane said to Tang Tian, 30% of your true power, use the Tan-Tue blade. As expected, Tang Tian was enraged. I was wondering why you wanted so much money. You asshole. You actually gave me a training camp with a scale of 10,000 people. My money. My money. Tang Tian, who was dressed in the peacock armor, opened up his arms, his face solemn. Come Ling Su, I will not hate you. Crane and Ling Su only saw a blur in front of them. They did not even see Tang Tian's movements clearly. I have discussed with Pai Pa for a long time and came up with this battle plan. With that, Bing threw the 3 battle plans to the 3 of them. Ling Su's hand trembled, he could not hold it in anymore and scolded, "Shut up." Tang Tian threw the job of choosing cannon fodder to Bing. "All right." Crane nodded. Crane's face gradually calmed down. Yes, the use of power is more reasonable and more concentrated, that is why there is such an effect. Peacock true power, a very scary true power. This power is even stronger than the silver weapons of the northern sky's 19 continents. I am afraid it is comparable to the higher grade polar ground grade silver weapons. Crane truly has a good brain. Tang Tian praised. Crane was truly too intelligent, his analysis was logical and could always make people believe him. A spark followed by an even sharper collision sound. This time Tang Tian's body only swayed and did not retreat. Ding. Chapter 267. Tang Tian turned his head, the anger on his face had not subsided, and stared fiercely at Crane. "What if I can't?" Ling Su could not help but ask. Crane. Yes, test. Ling Su added. His gaze was cold. But Sai Lei's shocked expression was extremely realistic. She immediately said, "It's good that young master is fine. This 3-spirit city's security is usually good. He did not succeed the last time, but this time he would not give Sai Lei the chance to evade. Once she had nothing to do, she would gain enlightenment. Miss Sai Lei, seems like you've earned a lot." Crane had improved very quickly in this period of time, but compared to Tang Tian he was still lacking. Although Crane was humble and gentle, but his heart was extremely prideful. Crane was calm as usual, very important. The bleeding cat blade scythe in his hand was like a cat trapped in a cage. The power of the crane made the cage much weaker, but it was still not enough to break the cage. Oh, test. Tang Tian woke up from his dream. After a while he expressionlessly squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, "Pervert." Tang Tian's heart was filled with regret. If his true power was slightly stronger, the power of the crane would become even more dangerous. With his current true power realm he was unable to display the true transformation of the power of the crane. Tang Tian's gaze could almost kill Bing. This time, young Master Gu had learned his lesson from last time. He had brought along enough experts. Tang Tian's performance caused Crane, who was hailed as a genius since young, to feel an immense pressure, as though there was a dagger on his back. It was not because of any conflict between the 2 of them, but because of the pride in his heart. The crane body energy could be said to be something that Tang Tian had accidentally trained up. Crane had learnt it from Tang Tian, and his improvement was lightning fast. All the martial techniques of the crane sect that were gradually disappearing were continuously recovering in his hands. But with just one look Tang Tian was able to produce the 1,000 crane converging slash, causing him to be stunned. "We still have an important test." Crane waved his hand. He had forgotten about the flow of time. With the people he had, it was enough to massacre the entire 3-spirit city. Tang Tian also nodded like a chick pecking rice. Yes. He suddenly tilted his head. If only Chia was here too. She could compare who is smarter. Chia is the smartest person in the world. Of course, little Crane, you're also very smart. You'll be ranked 2nd for now. After struggling in his heart for 2 seconds he decided to give up on the problem. Otherwise these 2 guys would turn around and forget about the test. Crane reminded Tang Tian, "Then let's start the test." Crane was speechless. No, just relying on the power of the crane is not right. Tang Tian shook his head. Crane did not care about being 2nd, but little Crane. Tang Tian was stunned. It took him a long time to react. He immediately flew into a rage and chased after them. "You 2 bastards. Make yourself clear. How dare you insult me? Are you looking for a fight?" Bing could feel the immense pressure. Perspiring profusely, he felt that he should not stay for long. He immediately said goodbye and slipped away. What other reason can there be? Ling Su did not care. Now he was actually in a state of enlightenment. That means there must be other reasons. Crane said. Hearing Playboy's venomous tone, Sai Lei's heart trembled. What exactly did Tang Tian do to him? Both of them were straightforward people. Their hearts were burning with a blazing battle intent, and they did not conceal it at all. Playboy stared at Sai Lei. He did not sense anything strange. He snorted. If this bastard lands in my hands, I will make him wish he was dead. He kept the smile on his face. His expression congealed. It was as though he was a different person. The mist around his body became denser. His figure became blurry. An astonishing aura enveloped the entire place. Pervert. Crane clenched his teeth and spat out the word, then turned and left. This brat. His eyes widened. The true power in his body seemed to be stirred by an invisible wooden stick. He bellowed. Bleeding cat blade scythe. If he could not even win against Tang Tian, how could he complete the revival of the Crane sect? When Crane saw Tang Tian's innocent look, he gave up on explaining to Tang Tian. He immediately said, "Find a treasure and use the power of the crane to see if it can evolve." But Sai Lei reacted quickly. It was as though he had met a good friend. He immediately smiled. Young master, ever since you bought First Snow, you have not visited my shop for a long time." Tang Tian activated his true power. The crane body in his body became even more active. It was constantly changing. Tang Tian could not help but be attracted to the crane body. The details of the battle 2 days ago flashed in front of his eyes like a lantern. Many fragmented realizations came surging in like a tide. Sai Lei was startled. She turned around. When she saw who it was, her heart jumped. The person standing in front of her was the playboy whom she tricked the last time. Playboy. The method is simple. Crane extended out a slender white finger. A light aura flashed in his eyes. Use another treasure to try it. If this treasure can evolve, then it means that the power of the crane is a method to initiate the evolution of the treasure. The bleeding cat blade scythe in his hand suddenly released a mist. It was like a flowing flame. Tang Tian frowned. He felt that he was lacking something. He could not tell what was lacking. But the feeling was very strong. He closed his eyes. He felt it carefully. Pervert. Ling Su scolded him. He turned and left. Crane felt that his body was not feeling well. His face was ugly. He asked with difficulty, "Is this not his first enlightenment?" But it was a pity that his true power was still too weak. The last time he caused a ruckus in Three Spirit City, his father was alerted and he was severely punished. He was not willing to give up. Coincidentally, one of the clan elders heard about the mechanical weapon shop. He was extremely interested and came to take a look. Probably because he felt that it was not good to say it like that, Tang Tian immediately pretended to praise. But it sounds really powerful. The faint sobbing sound of a cat enveloped the entire place. Tang Tian was still fuming. What test? Tang Tian was attracted by Crane's words. How can we be sure? Suddenly a cold voice came out. Crane and Ling Su's eyes flashed with surprise. Tang Tian and Ling Su had their mouths wide open. They looked at Crane as though they were looking at a monster. I am already on the verge of forgetting. I knew it would be like this. Crane thought to himself. First time. Ling Su's face turned sinister. I don't know how many times this brat has done it. Crane looked at Tang Tian, who was like a puppet. He could not believe his own eyes. Enlightenment. Three Spirit City. After saying that, Tang Tian realized that no one cared about him. He looked at the two of them weirdly. Seeing their weird expressions, he became even weirder. Hey, what's with your expressions? Regret flashed past his eyes. Tang Tian's state of mind was once again as bright as the sun. Crane's eyes flashed with a light. From the current analysis, the power of the crane is an important factor in the evolution of the star treasure. We need to confirm if it is the only factor. Sai Lei, who had sufficient funds, was even more wantonly recruiting people. What surprised her was that the Mo family heard that she was planning to build a bronze fort. They immediately sent over 40 mechanical engineers to help. These mechanical engineers were all experienced veterans. Their arrival immediately made Sai Lei feel much more relaxed. The progress of the project also increased. This was just the beginning. Now I finally know what an intelligent person is like. Ling Su shook his head. Just one thing and you guys are able to create so many problems. What are your brains made of? I said so much just now. Did you not listen to me? Crane looked at Tang Tian seriously. He wanted to confirm that Tang Tian was not playing a prank on him. If he could not even defeat this crazy young man, how could he defeat the traitor? The clan elder's greatest interest was in mechanical techniques. All of these familiar and fragmented insights had a trace of ice-cold aura. Suddenly, Tang Tian turned his head embarrassedly. What are we testing? He thought for half a day but could not figure it out. Thus he could only retreat. After Playboy finished, he sized up the bustling construction site. He suddenly sneered. Miss Sai Lei has found a backer. I wonder who he is. It was not only him. Ling Su was equally proud. At the start, his and Tang Tian's strengths were not far apart. But now that Tang Tian had surpassed him, how could he admit defeat? In the mist, there was a pair of eyes that shone with divine light like the stars. He had forgotten his goal. He was immersed in the small fragments. Playboy smiled insincerely. He stared at Sai Lei. The last time I left Three Spirit City I was robbed. Even Chu Shui was robbed. Ling Su's eyes were filled with envy. He clenched his teeth. That pervert. When he has nothing to do he will comprehend. Asshole. Damn it. Ha. Tang Tian laughed. He clapped his hands. Yes, I remember now. Hey little kitty. It's up to you now. Tang Tian said to the bleeding cat blade scythe. Crane glanced at Ling Su and said sternly, there are many reasons. For example, the peacock had been tempered by Tang Tian's martial spirit. Only then did it transform. That could be one of the reasons for the star treasure's evolution. Here there are two reasons. One is the tempering of the martial spirit. The other is the evolution. Which one is the real reason? Or should I say the two conditions must be fulfilled at the same time? After finding the reason we will find out. Every condition needs to be met. For example, the tempering of the martial spirit. To what extent does it need to be tempered? These are all things that we need to find out. To develop the fire scythe ghost claw into a unique martial technique. To comprehend the power of the crane. To evolve the star treasure. Originally there were many powers that coveted the Lin family. But Bing had set his mind to take them down. He threatened them, scaring the other families away. Although the Lin family was in ruins, they were still a family that relied on mechanical techniques. They had stored a large amount of bronze. Sai Lei bought them at a low price. I did. Tang Tian scratched his head. He was at a loss. But I didn't really understand. He said 1, 2, 3. Sounded so complicated. Whoosh. The mist surrounding Tang Tian's body seemed to be blown by the wind and suddenly rolled up. Tang Tian's aura seemed to have become stronger. Gradually he understood the meaning behind it. Sai Lei looked at the bustling scene. He was satisfied. Chapter 268. Tang Tian shook his head. How can such a cowardly tofu heart groom out a good spirit general? Is there a trash can or something? Just at this time a voice came out from behind. Everyone, what's the matter? It's useless. No matter how you train, it's useless. He was sweating profusely. Thinking about his father who was famous for his iron blood, his scalp went numb. This kind of competitive strategy was the iron law of the tribe. His father was an unwavering supporter. That year he stood out from the 200 tribesmen and obtained his current position. Although the young master was a little flashy, but his foresight and wisdom was not lacking. Different from the bulky and cumbersome mechanical weapons, Sky Tiger's body was thin and well-proportioned. The lines were sharp like the sky blue metal, the feathers on its back were full of sharp aura. Elderly hurriedly said, "It's us who have troubled you. Goodbye." Hearing Elderly's words he immediately calmed down. An angry roar reverberated throughout the recruit barracks. Bing looked at the sky with tears in his eyes. The sorrow in his heart flowed like a river. If we can succeed, it will definitely add a lot of points for young master's assessment. Elderly was afraid that the young master would act recklessly and said. Searching every corner he did not see any news of Chia. He was such a wise and far-sighted master tactician. To actually make such a low-level mistake as expected, his intelligence was dragged down by that crazy young man. Master does not like to flaunt. As for other matters, this old man is only guarding the door. The work is urgent, I will not keep you all for tea. Blind Cord Old Man said indifferently. Tang Tian was still immersed in training. Whatever plans, he threw it all to Crane. He knew his own limits. With his own mind, all these complicated matters made him dizzy. Elderly's heart was beating fast. He did not expect to meet a Heaven Road list martial artist, and it was the famous Blind Cord Old Man. He reacted quickly and immediately said, I did not know this was Senior's property. Please forgive me. Yes. Tang Tian nodded his head. I already knew you were a coward. Elderly's gaze was cast towards a balcony in the distance that was basking in the sun. A blind old man sat on a wheelchair and played the eru while making iya noises. Behind the old man, a strong man looked at him with a cold gaze. I don't dare. Tang Tian sneered. Have you forgotten whose territory this is? Tangyi, is there any way to get rid of this guy? Elder Li's eyes lit up. When he first saw the sky tiger, he couldn't take his eyes off it. Hey, you better not come, humph humph. Bing's killing intent soared. He had just spilled the beans in front of Tang Tian and was in a terrible mood. Now that he had bumped into these people, he couldn't wait to fight them. Don't you want the swallowing light steel fist anymore? It's a unique martial skill. He pulled Playboy and left dejectedly. How dare you? The smoke was furious. Every time he finished a round of training, he would meditate to recover his true power, and at the same time, use his martial spirit silver flame to temper the bleeding cat blade scythe. The last time he tried using the power of the crane, there was always a slight obstacle. He felt that the tempering of the bleeding cat blade scythe was not enough, so he continued to temper the bleeding cat blade scythe. Elderly patiently explained. One look and you can tell that the blind cord old man is not the person in charge. To be able to make a Heaven Road list martial artist willingly guard a place, how can an ordinary powerhouse do that? If you start a war, it will implicate a lot of people. Young master, you must not act rashly. Different from Ling Su and Crane, Tang Tian had never felt that his talent and training was outstanding. Since young, no one had ever called him a genius. On the contrary, the mockery and ridicule had accompanied him as he grew up. His heart had long been tempered to become extremely tenacious and even more steady. He had been immersed in mechanical techniques for over 10 years, and his foresight was shrewd and ruthless. It was not something that Playboy could compare to. Elder Li's eyes flashed a cunning look. Young master, don't worry. We are not suitable to take action. We can find someone else to do it. A beautiful blue mechanical weapon quietly appeared behind everyone. A low and stern voice came out from inside. Tangyi said, we can throw it to the martial technique wall and engulf the spirit cards to form a new spirit general. It quietly floated in the air, its body slightly leaning forward. Its gaze was like that of a predator. A wave of killing intent enveloped the entire area. Playboy was silent. Open your eyes and take a look. Stop daydreaming. Heaven Road list martial artist. Elder Li's face congealed. I did not expect it to be him. Seems like we have to investigate his backing. Send people to keep a close eye on them. Don't do anything. Just keep an eye on them. That mechanical weapon is not normal. After meditating, Tang Tian stood up and walked in front of the smoke. Hey, can you shut up? They have famous teachers, countless of treasures. Since young, their blood meridians have been cleansed, and unique martial techniques have been trained since young. What do you have to compete with them? Your sweat. Stop joking. Anyway, it was just grinding. After 100,000 times or 1,000,000 times, it would be grinded through. Will they come again? Sai Lei asked worriedly. Ever since a few days ago, the smoke with the pair of angry eyes finally had some movement. Then, it was like this. Then we are just helpless like this. Playboy said unhappily. Not only did he have to compete with his own brothers and sisters, he also had to compete with the direct descendants of the other branches. His annual examinations could only be considered above average and was not considered outstanding. There were a few introductions about him, and it was about the battle of the 5 Hitmen squad. Some of the details were actually accurate, but at the same time there were some conjectures. But in the huge Heavens Road, such a battle was not eye-catching. Currently, the most shocking thing was the battle between the sword saints of the two sections. The family treated all the second-generation disciples equally. They were scattered all over the place and everyone had their own businesses. Every year they would be tested. The results of the tests would be used to judge their abilities. Upon Sky Tiger's appearance, he immediately attracted everyone's attention, especially Elder Li, who was beside Playboy, who did not speak. His eyes suddenly lit up as he stared intently at Sky Tiger. Furious roars drifted out from the cloud of smoke and lingered in the ears. The martial artists beside the young master turned pale with fright. In front of the aristocratic families, your persistence has no meaning. You have already lost at the starting line. No matter how fast you run, no matter how hard you try, it is all meaningless. In the future, it would not be easy to get money from young man Tang. Tang Tian was a little disappointed, but very quickly he raised his head, his gaze once again becoming unswerving. Elder Li's heart jumped. A name uncontrollably surfaced in his mind. You were saying? Playboy's eyes lit up. A powerhouse that could have a Heaven Road list martial artist was not a small powerhouse. Sai Lei heaved a sigh of relief. Playboy's gaze towards her was so passionate that it caused her hair to stand. Elder Li's face changed. Any Heaven Road list martial artist was extremely arrogant. They were the world's strongest small group of people and they already stood at the top of the world. Such a strong martial artist, the difficulty of recruiting them could be imagined. Elder Li frowned, walked to Playboy's side and placed his hand on Playboy's shoulder. A wave of true power entered Playboy's body, causing Playboy to suddenly wake up, his face revealing a shocked expression. His current goal was the air shield strike technique. But he was unable to complete the middle difficulty, pit of falling rocks. But that did not make him retreat. He simply started to practice waving his shield, the most basic movement of shield-type martial techniques. He took a deep breath, the true chi in his body stirred and shouted, "Are you blind cord old man? I am just a servant helping my master to guard this place." Blind cord old man said indifferently. Elder Li smiled satisfactorily. A look of displeasure flashed past Elder Li's eyes. The strong were respected. The Heaven Road list martial artist was worthy of respect. His young master's performance made him unhappy. But he did not say much and only said, "Young master, please do not act blindly without thinking. The other party's background is unfathomable. Before we completely understand, we should not make enemies with them. I wonder if your master." Elder Li tried to probe. No matter what kind of strategy, in the end they would have to compete with their fists to win or lose. Since it was so, then he would spend all his time on training. That's right, if they are bluffing they will immediately reveal their true colors. Elder Li said, "Not all the Heaven Road list martial artists see money as dirt. Young master's foresight is indeed extraordinary. That mechanical weapon is not an ordinary item. When it neared us it did not make a sound. Such a strong mechanical weapon, I have never heard of it. This society is not fair. Never fair. Ants will always be ants." Heaven Road list martial artist. Playboy's face changed. That old man is actually a Heaven Road list martial artist. Playboy, who was pulled away, was at a loss. Elder Li, where did that blind cord old man come from? Tang Tian looked for the latest issue of Immortal Martial News. As expected of a loser. Tang Tian shook his head. Isn't that how losers find excuses for themselves? What, swallowing light steel fist? You have such a soft heart, how can you train in a steel fist? I am not the least bit interested in you now. Let me tell you, if you do not shut up I will erase you. Sai Lei's heart jumped. The other party obviously did not have good intentions. Perspiration would not lie. The smoke was enraged. Tang Tian was too lazy to care about it. But this fellow did not have the slightest intention to restrain himself, roaring and howling all day. It was so noisy. Bing did not have time to take care of his training, so he did it himself. The crowd was restless. The martial artists beside Playboy all had a change in expression. A few experts could not hold back and were about to step out. Then he would make himself the strongest fist. Every round of training I will wave the shield 20,000 times. Maybe there are shortcuts, but only smart people can find them. I will train honestly until I have enough. The sorrowful string sound affected people's state of mind. Playboy's face was in a daze. His strength was very sloppy. How could he block the string sound? His state of mind was immediately absorbed by the string sound. From the past till now he had always believed in this. There were too many principles in this world. He only needed to understand this one, and that was enough. Playboy was not satisfied. He snorted. "So what if you are a Heaven Road list martial artist? We have one too." The old man stopped. His coarse and dry voice came out from afar. "It's me." "I'll listen to you." Playboy said. "I have enough patience." A strand of sorrowful string sound floated out from afar. "Ah. Did I hit the nail on the head? And actually you already knew, you were just lying to yourself, haha." The smoke laughed maniacally. Chapter 269. Yu Shun and the other two's eyes immediately turned red. All of them were elites of feudal martial and had spent many years to groom them, but they were like lambs being slaughtered by the opponent. Time passed slowly. Tang Tian's heart was not distracted. Yu Shun was equally agitated, but he was still experienced and prudent. "That depends on us." Tang Tian, who was immersed in training, did not notice Tang Yi's strangeness. He had to seize the time, because they had to take action tonight. Hua Air and the rest had already scouted out feudal marshal's location, and the desert was ultimately their territory. Boss actually went to challenge Kongda? The battle was imminent, but Tang Tian's state of mind was not affected in the slightest. He was extremely focused on training, even if it was the simplest wave of the shield. After mastering the power of the crane, Tang Tian was more sensitive to the minute changes, and became more sensitive. The night was like water. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the camp. Yu Shun suddenly squinted his eyes, his face cold. Such guts to actually dare to attack the camp. Yu Shun took a sip of the strong alcohol but did not swallow it, but kept it in his mouth with a leisurely look. He looked ordinary, but his expression was calm and unruffled, giving people a feeling that he did everything slowly. According to Bing's battle plan, tonight was the first wave of sneak attack. Just at this time, the silver-armored young man who was locked down by his palm suddenly raised his head, his cold pupils lit up with a brilliant light. Tang Tian shook his head. I don't want it. No matter how powerful a martial technique is, without the heart of a martial artist, it is fated to be incomplete. When Ghost Claw taught me the Fire Scythe Ghost Claw, it was not a unique martial technique, but I was very happy because I could feel Ghost Claw's willpower and conviction from this martial technique. That was a willpower and conviction that even time could not erase. And in your swallowing light steel fist, there are only your complaints, your cowardice, your excuses. Such a martial technique, I don't want it. But Yu Shun's gaze was fixated on the person in the silver armor holding the shield in his left hand. That person was not the strongest, but his killing efficiency was the highest. Like an emotionless killing machine, his movements were simple and clean without any excess. The opponent only had 3 people, and the one who used a blade was a spirit general, but the blade aura was extremely tyrannical and there was almost no one who could withstand it. The black-clothed youth wielding the sword was confident and agile. His sword aura was sharp and incisive, and his movements were extremely unpredictable. From time to time he would create 2 or 3 phantoms that were hard to distinguish between real and fake. What was his will and belief? This was the Great Sorrow Thunder Palm. Yongqiu laughed out loud. Actually, it's pretty good. It's rare for everyone to gather, and I see that everyone is rather happy. Although he had long since expected that this mission would not be easy, the silver-armored youth still caused a ripple in his heart. That's right. Yu Shun's expression congealed as he nodded his head. This Ursa Minor constellation silver treasure is our reward for this operation. After we kill these few fellows, this silver treasure will belong to old man Yu. Tang Yi was also shocked by Tang Tian's words. He felt that Tang Tian's words seemed to have touched the bottom of his heart, and there seemed to be something fermenting in his body. What kind of martial artist are you? Yes. Yu Shun said solemnly. Boss obtained a Ursa Minor constellation, silver treasure. Yu Shun actually felt that he was being overly cautious, but he still said, it's better to be careful. Boss cares about these few people. Thinking that he could fight tonight, Tang Tian's morale soared. Even the repulsive Ling Su in his eyes became more pleasing to the eye. Ever since Tang Tian realized that battles were extremely helpful to the enlightenment of martial techniques, he finally understood why the martial artists in the legends loved to go around and challenge people. They probably felt that they would never cross paths with such a strong existence in their entire lives. A polar-grade silver treasure in the southern skies 42 constellations could definitely be sold for a sky-high price. Brother Shun, what's going on this time? Shui Qing raised his eyebrows and asked. Boss did not explain clearly and only told us to listen to your commands. We are still in the dark. Ursa Minor constellation, one of the 5 polar domains, to Lupus constellation, such a tyrant, was an unreachable and sacred existence. Lupus constellation was ranked towards the back of the southern skies 42 constellations. The northern skies 19 continents were enough for them to look up to, and the 5 polar domains. What? They were usually stationed at their own places, and to gather together was not suitable. Smoke was speechless. Using clumsiness to break through skill, 1 strength to defeat 10. Shui Qing had a slanted fringe, his face was thin and sharp, his neck was adorned with a fiery red silk scarf, his long and narrow eyes were like knives, giving people a gloomy feeling. He snorted and said gently, Are these fellows born in the year of the rabbit? They can really run, making us eat sand here. Such dry air, it's not good for my skin. Tang Tian did not hide the contempt in his eyes. Unfair? Heh. Do you know what a martial artist is? A martial artist is someone who, even if the entire world is your enemy, even if the road in front of you is filled with thorns, even if your life is destined to be rough, you will still walk forward with your head held high. You can be unknown, you can be lonely, you can be ridiculed, you can be humble, but when you finally close your eyes and leave this world, what will accompany you is your steel-like determination and conviction. That is a true martial artist. Ling Su rolled his eyes. We are going to sneak and attack, there is no need to shout so loudly. When Tang Tian and Tang Yi walked out of the room, Crane and Ling Su were already prepared. The more intense and difficult the battle, the easier it was for martial artists to have a deeper understanding of martial techniques. And this kind of understanding was not something that could be gained purely by training. Furthermore, it was a treasure weapon. The people who came were extremely fierce. In a few moves, more than 10 people were beheaded. Yu Shun hesitated for a while, looked around and said softly, "Boss is going to challenge Kong De." Yu Shun was not surprised at all by their reactions. Who was Kong De? He was the person who had held the #1 expert position of Lupus Constellation for so many years. His strength was unfathomable. Silver Moon Kong De, Heaven Hook Huai Bai Hua, Feudal Marshal Wu Taiyu, the three big shots had controlled Lupus Constellation for so many years, and their reputations were built on countless of corpses. Yu Shun's ordinary face suddenly blossomed with a bloodthirsty light aura. Under the shroud of the Great Sorrow Thunder Palm, even the air seemed to have solidified, and all those body techniques that could not be grasped would be completely ineffective. Yongqiu was moved. Where did these three people come from? To actually be worth a treasure weapon of Ursa Minor Constellation? Shui Qing snorted. Who cares where they come from? Even if they come from just for the silver treasure weapon of Ursa Minor Constellation, it is worth it. There was no light aura, only the unceasing rolling sound of thunder and the surging true power that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. The two of them almost thought that they had heard wrongly. Rushing forward, Yu Shun, who was in mid-air, took a deep breath. The true power in his body surged, the clothes on his body inflated like a balloon, and his right palm slowly pushed out. He was tall, about 1.9 m tall. The most eye-catching thing was his green eyes. His hands were extremely agile, a thin meat knife in between his fingers, reflecting a dazzling light aura. The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air again. They finally understood. Where did their boss confidence come from to challenge Kong De? 3 Heaven Road list martial artists, bringing along 100 Heaven Road grade martial artists, such a powerful force, could definitely walk unhindered in Lupus Constellation. Shui Qing and Yongqiu also sensed it and stood up. Tang Tian loved to fight. Tang Tian raised his arms and shouted, "Wah wah wah, let's fight, let's go. Look at us." Yongqiu was stunned, his eyes bursting out a light aura. Don't tell me the target we want to kill has something to do with the silver treasure weapon? Tang Tian was annoyed by the noise and impatiently interrupted him. He opened his eyes wide and looked straight into the smoke. The world is always cruel to the weak. Other people's superior conditions, is that an excuse for you to give up and retreat? The world has never been fair and it will never be fair, but so what? Are you going to surrender? Other people are fully armed and you're barehanded. You think it's unfair, so you chop off your own hands and feet and hide in a corner scolding the world? Tang Yi lowered his head and did not speak. What a terrifying fellow. Great Sorrow Thunder Palm. A surge of true power, along with the terrifying rolling thunder sound, rushed towards Tang Tian. Finished, he stood up and casually threw the wine bag to the side. Finished, Tang Tian did not care about the smoke anymore, and continued to practice his shield, the extremely dull and boring waving of the shield. Willpower and conviction? It was a huge help to his training. In the desert at night, the sky was filled with stars and the air was cold. Did you send people to stand guard? Yu Shun suddenly asked. The three of them used the light from the fire, and when they saw the scene, their faces immediately became ugly. It was not the first time the three of them had fought, and Kong De was obviously stronger than the other two. Shui Qing and Yongqiu were so shocked that they almost jumped up. The three of them shouted at the same time. Using all their true power, they rushed towards the three people in the crowd to kill. Tang Tian's surrounding 10 was completely enveloped by his palm. Under Hua Air's lead, they quickly found Feudal Marshal's camp. A bonfire, a group of martial artists' wanton laughter came from afar, and the smell of barbecued meat floated in the air. After completing 20,000 shield waves, Tang Tian meditated to recover his true power, and when he opened his eyes again, his pupils were radiating with light. and after a while the light gradually disappeared. "Ha! Brother Shun, you're too careful," Yongqiu said disapprovingly. "We have so many people here, and with the three of us sitting here, who dares to touch the tiger's butt? Their brains must be stuck in the door." The scene was extremely chaotic, screams and screams could be heard, and the bonfire reflected the warm blood that was spurting out as well as the panicked faces. These martial artists did not expect that there would actually be people who dared to sneak an attack on them. The two of them became excited and Shui Cheng's sharp voice trembled. Then wouldn't boss be able to unify Lupus Constellation? In terms of power, the spirit general with the Zanbato was stronger than him, but in terms of the number of people killed, the silver-armored young man was way ahead of him. The silver-armored young man was too proficient in using the surroundings. He was like a death god in the darkness, easily reaping lives. Yongqiu nodded his head. That's right, that's right. Who cares where they came from, let's do it." "You don't understand. Wait till you know the cruelty of this world," the smoke said hatefully. That's right, that's right. Brother Shun, tell us about it." Yongqiu was also excited. The three powerhouses maintained a tacit understanding from the start. Just like the three big shots, they were very clear of each other's strength. He liked peace and quiet, so he lit a small bonfire which was about 100 m away from the other martial artists. Chapter 270. Tang Tian suddenly let out a long whistle, his right hand holding the fire scythe ghost claw, his left hand holding the blood rush shield. An air blade flew out. It was actually the air shield strike technique. This stab was unprecedentedly light, his fingers gently rubbing the silver spear's shaft. The violent wind in front of him and the turbulent vision caused the fighting intent in Ling Su's body to suddenly ignite, his blood boiling. Ling Su looked in disbelief at the sheep horn wind chimes on the silver spear in his hand. His fingers subconsciously rubbed the spear's body, and the sound of the wind chimes rang out. It was clear, enchanting, straight into his heart and resonated with the true power in his body. Ding! Ling Su was surprised, but he realized that the flames, not only did it not harm him, it even made the true power in his body more active, and the flames enveloped Ling Su. But these people were obviously much harder to deal with than Xin Li's subordinates. After the initial panic, they calmed down, although the Heaven Road grade martial artists were not much of a threat to Tang Tian. But as long as he did not kill the opponent within 2 moves, the martial artists at the side would rush over. The flames exploded with the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it had enveloped Flamingo's entire body. Yushun coincidentally saw a figure faintly discernible in the crowd, coldly reaping lives. Teacher had never told him that the pointed sea spear needed a mount. This sudden enlightenment flashed past Ling Su's mind like lightning. When he regained his senses, he was already in front of the enemy without thinking, the silver spear in his hand lightly thrusted out. Now, it was the first time Yongqiu saw Feng Chou being suppressed, such a powerful spirit general. A ray of light flashed past his eyes. If such a valiant spirit general could be used by him. Everyone only felt a figure covered in flames, like an angry arrow rushing towards them. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of them. But Yongqiu's concealed weapons seemed to be endless, pouring out from his 10 fingers. Heaven Road list martial artist. Without a sound, 5 flying daggers appeared in his hands. With a flick of his hand, the 5 flying daggers whistled, drawing out 5 strange arcs straight towards Tang Yi. However, the silver spear became abnormally obedient, as if it slid out from his fingertips, spinning slightly. Tang Tian's body sank, and the yellow sand under his feet exploded and scattered in all directions. Ling Su's Qinggong was very ordinary. The other party was full of experts. If he got too close, he would be easily exposed. Thus, he had been lying in ambush about 500 feet away from the battlefield, waiting for the order to attack. But facing a spirit general who also used a blade, Feng Chou was actually completely suppressed. Fiery Bird had been remodeled by Sai Lei, and its various functions had been greatly enhanced. What surprised Sai Lei the most was that the flamingo actually gave birth to an existence similar to a martial spirit. Although it was still very weak, this meant that the flamingo had undergone a fundamental change. Flamingo had become something similar to a mechanical spirit weapon. Unexpectedly, his vision blurred and he suddenly lost sight of the other party. The leisurely sound of a wind chime seemed to penetrate through the layers of fog of history and directly hit people's hearts. The flamingo's speed was 3 times faster than before. Ling Su's silver hair was enveloped in a layer of bright red flames. His silver hair danced wantonly in the air and danced into a raging fire screen. When he saw the martial artist's expression when he fell, Ling Su was shocked again. He actually had finger strength that could pierce through my great sorrow thunder palm? Suddenly hearing Tang Tian's long whistle, he regained his senses and without hesitation he urged Flamingo to leave the battlefield. Ling Su's killing intent was aroused. Flamingo did not slow down at all, and with a sudden burst of energy he soared into the sky. The surroundings of Tang Tian formed a 2 m wide and half a meter deep pit. The interest in Yongqiu's eyes became even more intense, his 10 fingers flying, countless concealed weapons flew out from his fingers, infused with wood elemental true power, causing them to look like green rain, covering the sky and earth as they pounced towards Tang Yi. Ever since the last time he felt that the pointed sea spears had many techniques that could be used on the battlefield, but he thought that it was a common characteristic of the ancient spear techniques. And in this period of time he had always been trying to ride Flamingo to battle, but he never thought that the pointed sea spears was actually a spear technique used on the battlefield in the ancient times. When Ling Su regained his senses he had already rushed through the enemy's camp, and on the path that he had rushed through, there were corpses strewn all over the place. The true power in his body did not have any feeling of exhaustion. He felt that he had just walked for a few meters. It was a planned secret signal. The fire scythe Ghost Claw's finger strength was like 5 sharp spears, piercing through the opponent's palm energy. The surging palm energy came crashing down from behind. Yongqiu's opponent was Tang Yi. His spirit general was also a blade-wielding 8th-level spirit general called Feng Chou. Feng Chou's appearance was extremely ugly, but he was a famous blade artist 60 years ago. Feng Chou was Yongqiu's best helper with a power of the 8th level, was the limit of what Yongqiu could handle. Feng Chou's attainments in blade techniques were extremely high, and within the 8th level he rarely had an opponent. Suddenly, a crazed face appeared from the flames. The martial artists were all shocked. They all raised their weapons to block in front of their chest. Countless cold auras burst out from the flames, in a moment enveloping them. Ling Su's imposing manner was extremely ferocious. They did not have time to react and could only subconsciously block. Tang Tian was like a loach, appearing and disappearing in the chaotic crowd. The flamingo did not stop at all. Like a fluttering flame, it swept past a few cultivators. Increase speed. Increase speed. Increase speed again. Damn it. Ling Su suddenly felt that he and Flamingo were one body, with an unspeakable tacit understanding. Flamingo's movement was not small, and at the moment it was running at full speed, it immediately alerted everyone on the battlefield. Both of them were swordsmen and fought with speed. The two figures were like lightning. Upon contact they separated. Yushun squinted his eyes, his true power surging. Zzz. A layer of dazzling electric aura appeared on his palms. The ice-cold peacock true power flowed through his body. Tang Tian's heart was like ice. The battle between Crane and Shuaiqing was a different scene. Yushun's heart jumped, his entire body was on high alert, preparing to receive the opponent's attack. But after 5 to 6 seconds there was still no movement. Not good, I got tricked. The sheep horn wind bells on the spear tip was flung up. After obtaining it from the crypto-sword saint, Ling Su had tied it on the silver spear, just that it had never made a sound before. Suddenly Ling Su had a realization: the pointed sea spear was an ancient battlefield spear technique. Yongqiu and Feng Chou had joined hands, but they were still able to block Tang Yi. Without hesitation he flew forward. A gigantic wave of energy surged forth. Bang bang bang, the 3 martial artists flew out like sandbags, all of them bleeding from their 7 apertures. They were no longer breathing. What is this? The cold aura seemed to have struck their weapons at the same time. But Yushun's palm energy covered a wide area. Even though it was pierced, the remaining force still rushed towards Tang Tian. At the moment when the palm energy reached him, Tang Tian's eyes suddenly lit up with a blue light. He had long prepared the blood rush shield in front of his chest. His heart trembled, his great sorrow thunder palm's palm energy was like thunder. Among the rank 7 martial techniques, it was definitely a first-class firm and fierce palm technique. This palm technique he had trained to the point of perfection. Any ordinary Heaven Road grade martial artist would die in one palm. But on Tang Tian's raised face, there was not a bit of fear. Ling Su subconsciously released his spear. Chi chi chi. His spear became as fast as lightning. The naked eye could not catch it. A silver light flashed and a person fell to the ground. All the people who fell to the ground without exception, there was no pain on their faces. That's right, the pointed sea spear required a mount, and only the pointed sea spear with a mount was the true pointed sea spear. Such a crazy speed, even for a lunatic like Ling Su. He had to spend some time to adapt. The surrounding air seemed to have been locked down. Waves of surging true power surged in the circumference of 10 m, roaring out, causing layers of transparent ripples, and the low and deep sound of thunder reverberated in between the transparent ripples. But the other martial artists were unable to interfere. The hidden weapons that were like a torrential rain hitting the tyrannical blade screen caused the other martial artists to be unable to get close. What a vigorous true power. But once he got used to it, Ling Su started to like the feeling of being as fast as lightning. Tang Tian consecutively killed 6 people and was held up by 3. A shout came out from behind. Zhou Xian had arrived. Flamingo also felt Ling Su's fighting intent. Its speed became faster and faster. When it broke through its usual limits, bang, a red flame suddenly shot out from its toes. Tang Yi was indifferent. His blade power was great, but the blade light was like a screen, extremely tyrannical. The hidden weapons met the blade screen like rain hitting a banana leaf. Hearing Tang Tian's long whistle, Ling Su, who was lying in ambush, suddenly quivered, his blood rushing to his head. Tang Yi did not even look. The zanbato in his hand was like it was nothing. Casually slapping, the 5 flying knives seemed to have hit an invisible wall and bounced off. But it was too fast. Bang! The sharp and ice-cold true power shot out from his fingertips, and clashed with Zhou Xian's great sorrow thunder palm. Ling Su's body trembled. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief. It was as though he was struck by lightning. The many spear techniques of the pointed sea spear, the unique techniques of exerting force, appeared in his mind like a flashing lantern, and he suddenly understood. His right hand that was hanging by his side blossomed with blue sparks. His 5 fingers were like hooks. His elbow turned outwards and suddenly a claw came out. The silver spear was crying out in joy. It was as though it had once again tasted the long-lost contentment. With this leap, Flamingo traversed a distance of 15 m. Seeing the fear and panic on the faces of the martial artists in front of him, Ling Su's face became as calm as an ancient well, without a trace of his usual craziness. He was like an ancient flaming knight, overflowing with killing intent. Flamingo rushed out. Shui Qing used a slender rapier. His figure was swift and his sword techniques were unpredictable. Crane was similarly fast, but like a black crane dancing in the sky, he was confident and agile. His sword techniques did not have any sly chi, it was upright and upright. Zhou Xian, who was approaching aggressively, was like being bitten by a snake. He forcefully twisted his body in mid-air, and flew back a few meters before stopping. Zhou Xian's face was gloomy. His palm energy was completely penetrated by Tang Tian. The strange finger energy drilled into his meridians, and he spent 3 breaths of time before he could dissolve the strange finger energy. The martial artist in front of him was like a lost soul, not moving an inch. A silver light flashed and the spear tip quietly pierced into his chest. Bang! The martial artist fell to the ground, but his face did not show any pain.